Hey everyone, if you're enjoying my RM audiobooks, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that hype, and maybe check out my Patreon if you want to support the channel even more. Your support means a lot and helps me keep these coming. Now, sit back and enjoy the story.
Fake it till you make it. Chapter 47. Author note. Hey, I'm back with a new chapter. Alpha 02 Fury 97. At the moment, it's not a harem. At most it'll be just between Belle, Syr, and Ryuu, if not only one of them. But I am heavily leaning towards the former. Machigatte 2001, technically she did. Now in order, Draco is not going to be officially incorporated for now. Draco is a beast, and if we are to see a beast, it would be a rage-breaking point as you say, only possible if Belle were to completely lose it. Abilities and skills, they are all tied to the heroic spirit. Things like class-specific skills wouldn't be so much of a thing, and append skills would be a no. Lightning Lord Kaze, honestly I could have removed Ryuu's fauna, since you're right in that she was dead. But I decided to leave it as it is. Axel Allen, you won't have to wait much longer. Hopefully. And technically this isn't the harem route, more the Ryuu and Syr route. Anime fan 13579, I know Freya basically offered to share Belle with Ryuu, but in this case Ryuu is an elf, and would more than likely think it to be scandalous to do so. You're right on the part with several heroes having harems and having women being their downfall. I sort of have something planned, so we'll see. Cody White 162, I won't say anything on that end, but we'll just have to see. At any rate, we'll be entering the Freya Familia arc, so look forward to it. XXX. The next morning, Belle was in the Loki Familia Homes training area. Standing opposite of him was Finn, and the prom asked, I'll ask you one more time, are you sure you're up for this? Belle smirked, for the last time yes. Besides, you're the one who brought this up last night. Finn chuckled. True. To be fair though, we never actually got to have that spar now, did we? The younger adventurer nodded. I don't believe so. The prom nodded. And I believe you've gotten stronger from the last time we saw you, so I'm keen to see how much you've grown. Belle smiled. Not gonna lie, me too. Finn smiled. Plus, this will be a good warm-up for our upcoming expedition too. The younger boy blinked. Wait already? The prom nodded. Well, hearing about your expedition motivated some, if not a lot of our Familia members, so we're keen on seeing how far we can go. I have to say, lad, with how much of Finn's inner child you bring out every time, you're starting to make me jealous. The two looked to a side to see Gareth approaching them, and Finn laughed. You don't have to put it that way. I'll always have time for you. The dwarf snorted. At any rate, I'll be here to make sure neither of you destroy the mansion. Belle smiled awkwardly. Well, I think we'll be fine. Gareth scoffed. If you say so. Finn looked at Belle. Now, let's get started. The boy nodded. Whenever you're ready. The prom's lips curved upwards. Very well. With that said, Finn dashed forward, spear in hand as he closed the distance between him and Belle in the blink of an eye. The prom thrust his spear forward, only for sparks to fly as Belle redirected the thrust with Hakujin. Load Achilles. The Greek hero's existence filled his body, as Belle thrust Diatricon Asterlonk at the older adventurer. Finn grunted as he backed away, putting in some distance between him and Belle. But as soon as he landed on his feet, Belle was already upon him, having sheathed the Hakujin and turned to wield his spear with both hands. The prom narrowed his eyes as he deflected Belle's swings and thrusts. Finn watched the younger boy's every movement, not a single one of them wasted, but it also made him easy too. The prom's eyes widened as he was torn out of his musings when Belle rammed his shoulder into him, sending Finn skidding back. Belle smirked. I know my level is still lower, but you still need to pay attention. Finn chuckled. I suppose so. The prom charged forward again, this time feinting a thrust with his spear, only to throw a punch at Belle at the very last minute. Belle's eyes widened when the punch connected to his face, sending him flying backwards despite not doing much damage. The boy grunted as he regained his balance, before kicking off the ground back at Finn. Belle aimed his spear at the prom, and Finn quickly raised his spear to block the strike. The moment their spears collided, Belle lashed his fist out, landing a punch on Finn's face, sending him skidding back. The pair traded a few more thrusts and swings, before Belle leaped up and came down with a kick. Finn backed away to dodge the kick, before spotting Belle's outstretched ankle, and he swung his spear at it. To his surprise, Belle's spear was there to meet his strike, and the boy pushed the spear away before swinging his own in a wide arc, forcing Finn away. Belle breathed. I should have known you'd know the one weakness with this hero. Finn smiled. Hey, we don't really know a lot about your heroes, but there's always a possibility that someone knows and uses it against you. Belle nodded. I agree, and you're wrong on that end. The gods know about the heroes I inherit, so I have to be careful. The prom chuckled. So it seems. The white-haired boy dashed forward in an instant, thrusting his spear forward again, and Finn parried the thrust with his own spear. Finn's lips curved upwards and dashed back in, the pair engaging in a dangerous dance. As the two traded blows, more of the members of the Loki Familia started gathering around the training area. Kick his ass, Captain. Go Belle. Soon, some members started taking sides, cheering for one of them. Loki watched carefully as Belle and Finn continued trading blows. So he's grown strong enough to keep up with Finn now. The goddess of mischief turned to see Riveria. Yeah, well, I'm not too surprised. Besides, Finn's not going all out. The high elf nodded. Neither is Belle. Bet scowled. That rabbit. His scowl turned into a murderous smirk. How long is he gonna make me wait, goddammit? Tiona cheered. Go Argonaut Kun. Tioni screamed. Beat his ASS captain. Raoul's sweat dropped on the side. Those sisters really need to calm down. Aki giggled. Let them have their fun. You can't deny this is something. The co-captain of the second string nodded. Yeah, it's amazing. Yet, not everyone was enjoying the fight. Ace watched the pair trade blows, a dark glint in her eyes. Lafia studied her idol/friend, Ace-san. She glanced down, noticing Ace's clenched fists. Loki glanced at the blonde, and her lips thinned. Back with Belle and Finn, the pair moved around the field constantly, their spears clashing against each other. The two parted after yet another clash, but before they could continue, Loki's voice reached their ears. Finn, Belle, mind if we had a third player? The pair glanced at the goddess, and they spotted Loki with her hand on Ace's shoulder. Finn quickly understood what the goddess wanted, and the look on Ace's face said everything he needed to know. The prom glanced at Belle. How about it, Belle? Think you can handle it? The boy's face was unreadable to the prom, something Finn didn't know if he liked. Sure, I've been meaning to talk to her for a while now. The prom smiled softly. All right. He looked at Loki and Ace. Sure. Come on, Ace. That was the only thing the blonde needed to hear, and before the pair could react, she dashed forward, her sword drawn. Belle braced himself as Ace closed in, and he swung his spear to block the sword. Finn moved in quickly, his spear already in motion to stab at Belle, only for the white-haired boy to back away. The boy let out a short breath. I guess a single heroic spirit isn't quite enough, huh? The two members of the Loki familia dashed in at Belle, but this time, he was prepared. Overload, Lancelot. Arondite appeared in his right hand, and Diatricon Aster-Lonk rested in his left as Ace and Finn closed in. Belle parried the strike from Ace with his spear before leaping into the air and came down slashing with Arondite. The blonde easily dodged the swing, and Finn went in with a stab, only for Belle to block it with his own spear. The two level 6 adventurers continued putting pressure on the boy, and Belle grunted as he found himself quickly back to a corner. Belle narrowed his eyes as he dodged another stab from Ace, only having to block a swing from Finn. Overload, Gilgamesh. The powers of the King of Uruk filled his body, and the pair were forced to back away as multiple weapons stabbed into the ground. Finn watched with interest as multiple golden portals appeared behind Belle and around them. Oh, now what hero is this? Belle took the moment to breathe, before he gave them a small smirk. Gilgamesh, the King of Heroes. This is the hero I inherited when that whole thing with the Ishtar familia happened. The prom's lips curved upwards. Oh, so a hero that can take down an A-rank familia in a single night. Ace didn't say a thing, instead simply kept her eyes trained on the boy. The boy brandished his sword and spear. Here I come. With that said, Belle dashed forward, thrusting his spear at Ace. The blonde grunted as she parried the thrust, and she spotted Finn moving behind Belle for a thrust. But to her surprise, before the prom could attack, a golden portal appeared above them as a sword shot out, forcing Finn to back up. Ace was torn out of her musings as Belle swung the Arondite at her, dropping his spear as he wielded the holy sword with both hands. The blonde quickly found herself backing away, barely keeping up with his slashes and stabs. Ace snarled, Tempest. Her wind armor burst to life, forcing Belle to back away, but she quickly found a few swords shooting down from above before she could do more. Not one to waste a chance, Finn charged in from behind, but Belle was ready, having picked up his spear once more. Finn grunted as he was quickly pushed back with the combination of slashes and thrusts from the boy. The occasional rain of weapons also made it a lot harder to close in. Ace grunted in frustration as she watched Belle keep up with Finn so easily. She wasn't blind. She could easily see that Belle was basically fighting with the strength of a full party. As she watched Belle and Finn fight, the blonde could see the vestiges of Achilles, Gilgamesh, and Lancelot, sometimes overlapping Belle's figure. Every time Belle swung the Arondite, it was as if Lancelot was swinging it with Belle, and every time Belle thrust his spear, Achilles was there to help. The blonde tightened her grip on her sword in frustration, and she chanted, Tempest. Avenger. The chant surprised everyone, and before anyone could react, Ace propelled forward with the black wind swirling around her. The blonde yelled as she thrust her sword at Belle, who was facing Finn, who turned in time to parry her attack with little effort. Finn looked on with surprise as Belle backed away, the blonde not letting up on her attack. Ace. By now, Belle had once again let go of his spear, wielding his sword with both hands as he redirected Ace attacks. The random weapons he had been sending out at Ace from his treasury were being pushed away by the black wind around her, barely reaching her. In Ace's eyes, not only was she fighting Belle alone. No, she was fighting the boy and all three heroic spirits together. She wanted to win. She needed to. Nizzle. The black wind around her grew stronger as Ace pushed forward, and Belle grunted as the blonde continued her onslaught. By now, Finn had decided the spar had become one between Ace and Belle, and he watched at a side. The prom watched as Ace pushed up against Belle with her black wind, and the boy was impressively keeping up with his swordplay and treachery. Had enough? The prom turned to look at Loki. Yeah. Well, it won't be fair on Belle if I join in at this point. The cheers and screams had all quieted down the moment Ace used her Avenger skill, and Riveria was not happy at all. Lafia asked the High Elf, Riveria-sama, that black wind. Riveria narrowed her eyes. The Avenger skill. What are you thinking, Ace? Gareth whistled as he watched the two dance around the training area, the ground shaking from each clash between them. The lass has the power of a level 7 when she uses that thing, and the lad is keeping up with her? Finn nodded. I'm not surprised. As a level 3, he easily defeated a monster that's essentially a level 6. Now that he's gone further, Belle narrowed his eyes as he blocked a slash from Desperate, Ace Sandash. Ace snarled as she cut him off. Why? The boy breathed as he backed away to avoid a slash. Why? The blonde glared at him. Why are you so strong? Why can you protect monsters and still be so strong? Belle looked at her cautiously, but didn't respond, and Ace continued. I've been fighting for so many years. I've killed so many monsters. But why? Her grip on her sword was so tight her knuckles started turning white, and the sword started shaking. Why can't I reach you? Belle breathed out. Ace-san, what do you fight for? The question caught her off guard. In fact, it caught everyone off guard. Huh? The boy lowered his sword. Everyone becomes an adventurer for a reason. Fame, money, family, power. I am here now because I want to become a hero. I'm sure Finn-san's the same. What about you? Ace gritted her teeth. Revenge. Belle raised an eyebrow. Revenge? The blonde took a deep breath to control herself. Revenge against the monster that took everything from me. The black dragon. Ace snarled. That dragon. That monster took everything from me. All these years, everything I've done is to destroy that dragon. And I will destroy all the monsters in the world after that. Belle looked at her, his face betraying nothing. And then? What's next after that? The blonde was caught off guard by his question. Huh? The boy continued. I cannot say I'm stronger because I don't fight for revenge. But, at this point, you will only become strong enough to defeat monsters. Ace scowled. And why is that not enough? All I need is to destroy the monsters. Belle nodded. You're not wrong. But I want. No. I need to be strong enough to become a hero. I won't be only fighting monsters. I might fight other humans, other adventurers. I might even have to fight gods. He stared Ace in the eye. That's why I cannot stop growing stronger. What about you? What will you do once you've destroyed every monster on the planet? Ace gritted her teeth in frustration, and she charged forward with a loud scream. But before she could continue, she suddenly found that she couldn't move, and only then did she realize she was in chains. Belle let out a breath, hints of Gilgamesh's personality seeping through. Let's call it a day here, Ace-san. We can spar again, and maybe talk more when you've calmed down a bit. Ace grunted as she struggled against the chains, yet they didn't budge an inch. Why? Why can't I move? The boy explained. The chains of heavens, the chains of Enkidu. They were made with the intention to bind gods. For adventurers, no. For followers of gods and goddesses, members of their familias, all of us hold fragments of their divinity within ourselves. So the higher their level, the stronger the chains will work against them. Is that it? Belle turned to see Loki approaching them, and the boy nodded. Exactly. The goddess of mischief sighed. Should have seen this coming. I don't blame you for using those chains. Loki looked at Ace. After all, our little princess here went over the line first. Riveria frowned at her. Have you calmed down, Ace? The blonde had stopped struggling by now, and she had released her hold on her skill and magic. Yes. Belle hummed, and he released the chains, letting them return to his treasury, as Ace fell to the ground. The blonde picked herself off the ground, before walking away from the training area wordlessly. Riveria frowned. Ace. Ace didn't listen and instead continued walking to her room. Lafia looked at the others. I'll go check on her. Finn nodded. Please do. The elf looked at Belle. I'm sorry for what happened. With that said, Lafia chased after the blonde, leaving the rest. Bette scoffed. The hell? Finn sighed. I really do apologize, Belle. It was supposed to be a simple spar. Belle shook his head. No, don't. Ace-san and I, we never really had the chance to talk after what happened with the Xenos. I wasn't expecting things to be simple. Riveria rubbed her temples. Ace has always had a problem with monsters. I knew she still had issues with the Xenos, but I never expected she would take it out on you. The boy smiled and shook his head. No. Well, I did get in her way to protect the Xenos, plus with what happened in Knossos, I'd be surprised if she didn't have anything against me. Finn sighed. At any rate, we'll try to calm her down for now. Maybe once she's cleared her mind, we'll try to mend things between you and her. Belle nodded. Sounds like a plan. Bette smirked. So Rabbit, since the fight with Ace and the captain didn't last long, you're not that tired, are you? The boy met his gaze, and a smirk formed on Belle's face. Yeah, I think we'll finally have that rematch. Reveria sighed in exasperation. How do the two of you still have the energy to fight? Bet snorted. I didn't do shit, and the rabbit said he's fine. Since we've got an audience, might as well give them a true show. Gareth laughed. I don't see why not. Finn sighed with a smile. All right, we'll get out of the way. Soon, Belle and Bet stood in the training area, with the crowd watching them. Line break. Meanwhile, back in the Hearth Mansion, Welf sat in his forge, staring at the crackling flames. His mind was focused on what he had seen in the dungeon. Granted, all of it had to do with Belle, but it was enough to keep his mind occupied. Well, what do we have here? I'd thought you'd be working your ass off making more magic swords. Welf turned at the familiar voice, and he raised an eyebrow. Tsubaki, what are you doing here? The half-dwarf grinned at him. What? Can't come see my favorite blacksmith outside of our familia. The redhead scoffed. You really have too much time on your hands, don't you? Tsubaki laughed. I heard you had an expedition all the way to the 27th floor. Heard your familia took down the amphisbaena too. The younger blacksmith snorted. That was all Belle. Hell, everything that happened down there, and the fact that we all got back without even a scratch was all thanks to Belle. Tsubaki nodded. I can imagine. That captain of yours is something else. Welf nodded. He is. The half-dwarf folded her arms under her bust. But that's not what I'm here for. You look like you're in a slump. The redhead sighed. Of course I'd be. And why would that be? Another familiar voice reached his ears, and Welf jumped up to see his former patron goddess, Hephaestus-sama. The goddess of the forge smiled. Hello, Welf. The youngest blacksmith of the trio blinked. What are you doing here? Tsubaki cackled as Hephaestus looked around. I came to visit Hestia and Artemis. We're done, so I thought I'd drop by to see how you were holding up. The goddess walked around the forge, and Tsubaki was enjoying just how nervous that made Welf. The younger redhead stammered. I see. Hephaestus hummed. So, care to share what's troubling you? Welf met her gaze, seeing nothing but care in her eyes, and he took a deep breath. I'm frustrated. I've hit a wall. The two senior blacksmiths looked at him curiously, and Tsubaki asked, How so? The younger redhead sat down, staring at the flames near him. Belle showed me his swords from his blacksmith hero, Senji Muramasa. Tsubaki looked confused, but Hephaestus understood quickly. The goddess' eyes softened. You feel inferior now that Belle can forge better swords. Welf shook his head. No dash. He paused, before he nodded. Kind of, but not really. I knew Belle would eventually get a hero who happened to be a blacksmith. Tsubaki asked, So what's keeping you? The redhead closed his eyes. The swords he showed me. Some of them were just like magic swords. Hephaestus asked, Can you explain? Welf nodded. Those swords can fire magic continuously without breaking, at least, according to what I could see. I've managed to figure out how they work, but I can't figure out how to actually put that into practice. The goddess hummed. And how does it actually work? The younger redhead explained. The Muramasa swords don't use magic from within them. Well, they do, but not enough to exhaust the magic within entirely. They draw magic from the wielder, and use that to fuel the attack. Tsubaki's eyes widened. Wait, a magic sword breaks because the magic inside is gone, so if dash. Welf nodded. If I can apply the same principles, then I can forge a magic sword that doesn't break. Hephaestus nodded. I see. So that's what's been troubling you. The redhead smiled dryly. Well, that, and seeing the Excalibur Gallatin just made me question how far behind my magic swords actually are. The goddess sighed in exasperation. The Gallatin. She trailed off, palming her face. Look, I know you're aiming high, and it's a good thing. But even I can't forge a sword like that easily. Welf grinned. And that's why I want to be able to forge something like that. Tsubaki was confused, but from what she could understand from their conversation. So, this Gallatin must be a sword of very high quality. Hephaestus sighed. High quality doesn't even cut it. It's a sword forged by the Fae of the old legends, and contains a pseudo-sun within its blade. Tsubaki gaped. A pseudo what now? The goddess nodded. Yes, a sun. She looked at Welf. Using Muramasa's swords as a benchmark is not a bad thing. Just don't go off making demonic swords. Welf smiled. Of course not. Hephaestus sighed. But wanting to use a noble phantasm as a benchmark. I can't even. The youngest blacksmith just smiled awkwardly, and Tsubaki laughed. All right, so Welfie here has done something stupid. Case closed. The goddess shook her head. Anyway, I think I might have an answer to your problem. Welf blinked. Wait, you do? Hephaestus nodded. Your blood. How have you been using your Kratzo's blood all this time? The younger redhead hummed. I would always forge the blade first, then infuse the blood at the end to turn them into magic swords. The goddess nodded. How about changing that sequence? Welf's eyes widened. Wait, that can work. If I infuse my blood into the materials before they have a shape, I can bypass the swords needing a magic source from within. Hephaestus smiled. Of course, you'll need materials of high quality. Normal materials won't cut it. As it happens, I also brought a gift for you. The goddess pulled out in, or here. Welf and Tsubaki's eyes widened when they saw it, and Welf spluttered, adamantite. The half-dwarf gaped. You never gave me adamantite. Hephaestus just smiled. We had extra, so I thought I'd give Welf some to try something new. Tsubaki just gaped before she folded her arms. I guess it is what it is. Welf looked at the goddess in surprise. Are you sure? The goddess of the forge nodded. Of course. It won't be free though. The younger redhead blinked before his face paled. How much dash? Hephaestus cut him off. Not that kind of payment, idiot. Just show me what you can come up with. Impress me, and we're even. She held it out to him, and Welf took a deep breath. Thank you. I'll do my best. Hephaestus nodded. Excellent. We'll leave you be then. Tsubaki hummed. Guess that's it for today. She grinned at the younger blacksmith. I'll look forward to what you can show us, Welfie. Welf grinned back. You better be. He turned to face his forge once more as the two senior blacksmiths left, and Welf took a deep breath. He had a lot to do, and a lot to think about. Line break. Later that afternoon, Ryuu was in the kitchen preparing the ingredients for the night. The elf skillfully chopped the vegetables before placing them into different baskets. The young woman thought back to what happened in the dungeon. It had happened all too quickly, and she didn't even manage to actually take a good look at the subspecies of the juggernaut. It was all thanks to Belle, and only thanks to Belle that she had managed to survive it all. The elf let out another sigh. She had gone from training the young man to being the one that needed protecting. Belle was always getting stronger, yet Ryuu herself was basically stagnant. She had already reached the pinnacle of a level 4. There wasn't much space left for her to grow at this point. The elf tightened her grip on her knife. There was only one way for her to get stronger. That was to meet with Astria. But Ryuu wasn't sure if she was ready to face her past again. The elf hummed. Maybe I should ask Belle if he can come to see Astria-sama with me. Ryuu froze when she realized her line of thought, and her mind quickly went to her conversation with Belle earlier. She had essentially told him how she felt, and it was obvious that Belle didn't reject her. The elf pursed her lips. Although the two had agreed to try, Ryuu still couldn't help but worry about the situation with Syr. Ryuu, are you busy? The elf jumped when Syr's voice reached her ears. Syr. Ryuu turned to see her best friend standing by the kitchen door. What can I do for you? Syr smiled softly. I had something I wanted to talk to you about. The elf blinked a few times. Okay, what is it? The gray-haired girl smiled. Ryuu, I want you to answer me truthfully. Ryuu looked at Syr, and she nodded. Of course. Syr asked, promise. The elf was confused, but she nodded anyway. I promise. The girl walked into the kitchen past Ryuu. Ryuu, how do you feel about Belle-san? Ryuu froze, huh? Syr smiled softly. How do you really feel about him, Ryuu? The elf pursed her lips. Belle is a very important person to me. He saved my life, and dash. Syr cut her off. Do you love him? Ryuu's eyes widened. Love? The gray-haired girl nodded. Yes, love. Syr turned to look at Ryuu. Ryuu, I want to be honest with you. I love him. Ryuu looked down, not trusting herself to speak. The goddess in disguise could see the turmoil in the elf, but she continued anyway. The goddess of fertility festival is coming up soon, and I want to ask Belle-san out on a date. The elf took a deep breath. I see. Syr nodded. I know we joke around a lot, and we tease him a lot. But this time, I want it to be serious. Ryuu closed her eyes, her mind racing. A huge part of her wanted to give up. She wanted to stop thinking and back off for Syr, simply because she owed her that much. But at the same time, a part of Ryuu wanted to stand by Belle's side. The elf took a deep breath. Syr? That day we came back from the dungeon, I told Belle how I felt. Syr's eyes widened in surprise. Oh. Ryuu nodded. I'm the same as you. I like Belle, and I want to be his partner. The gray-haired girl smiled. To think you would have a head start. I didn't expect this at all. The elf looked down. I'm sorry. I owe you a lot, Syr, but I dash. Syr cut her off. What are you sorry for? Ryuu blinked. Huh? The gray-haired girl smiled. I'm happy you're being honest. If you decided to lie and back off, I would have been mad, you know? Ryuu looked at her in surprise. You're not mad? Her fellow waitress tilted her head in confusion. Why would I be? The elf furrowed her eyebrows. I'm trying to steal Belle away from you, even after everything you've done for me. Syr smiled, and that is different, and it changes nothing. Ryuu looked confused. What? The gray-haired girl turned away. You don't have to feel guilty, Ryuu. You haven't stolen him away from me yet. You may have gotten a head start, but I won't give up. The elf was baffled. What are you, dash? Syr smiled at her. I want to do this fair and square. I want Belle to love me back, and I want to do this the right way. All is fair in love and war, as they say. Ryuu closed her mouth before she spoke again. So you're okay with this? The gray-haired girl nodded. Yeep. I guess that settles it then. I'll ask him out for the festival. And just so you know, I don't plan on backing off at all, so you better do your best too, Ryuu. The elf took a moment to breathe before she nodded. Very well, I won't give him up. Syr smiled. Good, then we're rivals now. Ryuu nodded. Rivals? The gray-haired girl giggled. And just in case, you're not interested in sharing him, are you? The elf blushed. Share. Syr nodded. I'm not joking. If it's you, I don't mind. Ryuu's face turned red. I can't do that to Belle. It wouldn't be fair for him. Syr smiled mischievously. Ah, but you were considering it. Besides, what part of a young man being in a relationship with two women is unfair to him? It should be the other way around, no? The elf didn't answer, but her blushing face was all Syr needed to know what she was really thinking. The gray-haired waitress giggled. All right, I'll let you off with this for now, but I will show you no mercy after this. With that said, Syr turned to leave the kitchen. But before she could, Ryuu spoke up. Syr. The gray-haired girl turned to look at her best friend. Yes? The elf took a deep breath. I'll ask Belle to go on a date during the goddess festival too. Syr blinked, before her lips curved upwards. Really now? Ryuu nodded, and she looked Syr in the eye. I won't lose to you. Her fellow waitress smiled. All right, how about we both ask him out at the same time then? The elf blinked a few times. At the same time? Syr nodded. That will give us our answer, no? Ryuu smiled dryly. I suppose it will, but that'll put Belle in a bit of a spot. The gray-haired girl snorted. It'll be fun, and I don't want to wait any longer. The elf chuckled. All right, we'll ask him together. Syr smiled. Then it's settled. The gray-haired girl left the kitchen, leaving Ryuu to continue her work in the kitchen. Line break. Later that night, Belle was in his room in the Hostess of Fertility, having dispelled Dion's noble phantasm as he got ready to go home. The boy let out a deep breath as he shoved his waitress uniform in a laundry basket. That's enough for today. Time to go home. Belle-san, do you have a moment? Syr's voice reached his ears, and Belle turned. Yes? The boy quickly spotted Syr and Ryuu at his door. Syr-san, Ryuu-san? Is there something wrong? Ryuu took a deep breath. We wanted to talk to you about something. Belle raised an eyebrow. Sure, what's up? Syr smiled. Well, the goddess festival is coming up very soon, and I was hoping to ask you to go with me on a date. Ryuu had the same idea. The boy hummed. The goddess festival, was it? The one coming up in a week. Ryuu nodded. Yes. Belle nodded. But before he could speak up, Syr cut him off. And just so you know, we mean one of us, so you have to choose. The boy blinked. Huh? Choose. Ryuu's face reddened, and she nodded. Syr and I, we talked about how we felt about you. That's why we're doing this. Syr's face reddened slightly. That's right. Well, I'm sort of annoyed I haven't actually told you how I really feel, but that's how it is. Ryuu or me. You need to choose. Belle froze, and his mind raced. Before he realized something. None of the memories I inherited ever had a situation like this. It was one thing to have one of them ask him out or confess their feelings. It was another to have both show up and force him to choose on the spot. The boy calmed himself down. He had initially been ready to just say yes, but now that they were being serious, he too needed to take it seriously. Belle took a deep breath. He knew what his choice was. He'd already made it when Ryuu told him how she felt. How about you just take them both on a date each? Then make your decision later? Mia's voice reached their ears, and the three jumped. Mamma Mia? The dwarf stared at the three with a not-so-amused expression, and behind her were the other waitresses, all watching with interest. Mia looked at Belle. Don't just make your decision like this. You need to think this through, yeah? The boy blinked, before he nodded. Why, yeah, well. That's true. Mia looked at Syr and Ryuu. And you too. Don't force the brat to choose without so much of a warning. You need to think from his perspective too sometimes. The dwarf looked at Syr at the very last part, and the gray-haired girl smiled sheepishly. I guess that was a bit mean. The dwarf scoffed. There's 3 days for the goddess festival. He can take both of you, but on different days. Does that work? Syr and Ryuu looked at each other, and the elf spoke. I'm fine, if you're okay with this. Syr smiled and nodded. Then we'll just have to figure out who's going first. Mia scoffed. You can figure that out on your own. With that said, the dwarf walked past the 3 of them to reach her own room, but not before poking at the boy. You owe me for this. Belle rubbed his temples. Guess that settles it. The boy looked at the 2 girls, so. Syr smiled. Ryuu and I will decide who's going first, so just wait a bit, okay? Ryuu nodded. We'll let you know when we have a decision. Belle nodded slowly. Then, am I good to go home? The 2 girls nodded. Of course. The boy walked to the stairs. Thank you. Good night, both of you. He ignored the teasing/sympathetic looks from Anya, Chloe, and Lenoir before heading home. Later that day, back in the Freya Familia home, the folkvanger, Otter sat at a round table with 7 other men. Alan Fromel scowled. So, what's so important you had to get all of us here for a meeting? The Boaz had a complicated expression on his face, but he was patient, for he knew his fellow Familia members had yet to finish speaking. One of the 4 Gulliver brothers, Alfred, asked, If you called for an emergency meeting, it must have been something important, isn't it? Hogni chuckled. The sacred eve of the goddesses draweth nigh, and the veil twixt worlds groweth thin. Steel thy soul, for chaos stirreth in the shadow, and fate shall show no mercy to the unprepared. Hadine sighed. Hogni, shut up. Otter nodded. Our esteemed patron, more specifically, Syr-sama, has decided to go on a date with Belle Cranel. That threw the Gulliver brothers into a frenzy. What? How did that happen? When did this happen? Otter sighed. I heard it from Horn. Syr-sama invited Belle Cranel personally. and she did it with the gale wind. Apparently, this is not a casual date, but a serious one. He will be taking both on a date, and is expected to make a choice between either one after their respective dates. Hayden scoffed, as if there is any other choice for him. The Gulliver brothers exploded yet again. Wait, so what are we doing? How are we doing guard duty? Otter answered calmly. We'll proceed as usual, in 2 groups. Hayden breathed. Which day exactly is this date happening? The Boaz shook his head. Unfortunately, I have no idea. We'll have to wait for Horn to tell us. Alan scoffed. This is pointless. I'm leaving. Otter narrowed his eyes. Alan, the meeting is not over. The Wercat snorted. It is for me. I'll be guarding the girl. You can figure out the rest. With that said, Alan stormed out of the meeting room. Otter sighed again, and Hayden closed his eyes. A date to decide between Syr and the gale wind. The elf scoffed. What a joke. Hayden drowned out the voices of his fellow Familia members, particularly the Gulliver brothers arguing with Otter and Hogni's foolish verses. He had much to think about, and much to do. Author note. Done. So that's the start of the Freya Familia arc. We'll see more of what Hayden has planned moving forward, and what Belle plans to do with Ryuu and Syr. Read and review, please. Until the next one.
Fake it till you make it. Chapter 48. Author note. Hey everyone, I'm back with a new chapter. Anime fan 13579. To be fair, Belle in general can hit above his weight class easily. As a level 3, he was already able to defeat Ace without her Avenger skill using Galahad and Lancelot. Using Gilgamesh, Lancelot, and Achilles would easily put him above most level 6s, simply just by overpowering them and also outmaneuvering them strategically. And with Ryu's feelings regarding Syr, you're pretty much on the money there. She's willing to share Belle with Syr, and vice versa, but both her sense of debt for Syr and feelings, respect, and romantically, for Belle makes it hard for her. Alpha 02, Fury 97. I will say nothing of this about Daddy Hayden. Axel Allen. To be fair, my understanding of EMIYA is that he never actually was in a relationship with Livia or Rin. Disregarding all the memes about EMIYA having a full-ass harem and daughters in FGO, when you think about it, Fate Route Shiro, which is generally the one who becomes Archer as far as I'm aware, is mainly in love with Artoria. Nameless Archer is probably even worse, and that is a can of worms I don't want to open. So here, in Belle's memories from EMIYA, he doesn't actually know how to court multiple women. Archer, who I hope so too. Black Dragon Can 1 GHD. Honestly, it did occur to me too, but it was a bit too late. My only answer to that is Bella's Bella, smiles a lot, compared to Althea. Pixie Duck. Not sure if you'll be reading this here, but I'm not too sure which commoner is a triggered Ace fanboy. Riveria and Lafia both see Belle more as a friend and a rival, in Lafia's case, so not really. The pairing for this story is more towards Ryuu and maybe Freya/Syr. As for Freya, well, this is just my headcanon and the way it'll be for this story. Freya never slept with the blacksmith for the Bringars. It was simply the Bringer's assumptions that she did. But I agree, most gods in DanMachi are essentially OCs with their names. Hence why I love how Parcasia's Fate Grand Dungeon explores the gods' memories and existences between DanMachi and panhuman history. In this story, I've made it so the gods share the same existences, but are also separate entities at the same time. At any rate, here's the newest chapter. XXX. Later that night, Lafia stood in Ace's room, watching the blonde sit curled up on her bed. The elf asked worriedly, Ace-san, do you want to talk about it? Ace didn't respond. She didn't trust herself to speak at all. Lafia furrowed her brows. I know you've been having trouble accepting the Xenos. Not everyone in our familia is fine with it. So don't feel bad if you don't agree with this. The blonde tightened her grip on her arms. It's not that. The elf pushed on. Then can you tell me what's wrong? You're hurting, and it hurts me to see you like this. It's hurting Riveria-sama, and everyone else too. Ace closed her eyes, not answering her friend. Lafia approached the older girl, speaking gently. Ace-san. The blonde let out a deep breath. Many years ago, I lived with my parents. My mother was a spirit, and my father was an adventurer. The elf nodded, but spoke nothing and simply listened. The swordswoman smiled. My father was strong. He was a master swordsman, and my mother supported him with her spirit magic. He would venture into the dungeon, and he would come back like a hero. Ace continued. One day, the black dragon appeared, and my father lost his life fighting it. My mother disappeared too. Her eyes gained a dark glint. That dragon took everything from me. That's why I spent all these years preparing myself to kill it. Ace closed her eyes. Before I lost them, my parents would tell me stories of a hero saving a princess. In that sense, my father was my mother's hero, and they said one day I would meet one of my own. Lafia simply continued listening, giving her idol all of her attention, and the blonde continued. After I lost my family, I waited. No matter how much I cried, no matter how much it hurt, a hero never came for me. Ace took a shaky breath. I decided I couldn't wait for a hero, so I picked up the sword. I vowed to kill the black dragon and avenge the deaths of my family. The blonde hugged her knees close to her chest, but then Bell showed up. He was weak in the beginning, but he was determined. He also had the support of so many spirits. He felt just like my father, like a hero. Ace smiled softly. I was happy, even though I'm not as close to him as you are. Just knowing he was there gave me a small bit of hope. Lafia commented, I never knew you felt this way. The blonde nodded. I've never told anyone this, not even Riveria. The elf spoke, and to see someone who reminded you of your father defending monsters. Ace nodded. I couldn't understand it. Why would he protect monsters? Why would the spirits help him protect those monsters? The blonde looked down, Belle. He surpassed me before I even knew it. Ace clenched her fists. If Belle got so much stronger in such a short amount of time, so easily, what did I even spend so many years killing monsters for? Lafia stared at her friend. Ace-san, I think you might be too focused on Belle. The half-spirit looked at the elf. Huh. Lafia smiled. Look, from what you've told me, you're not even angry at Belle for protecting the Xenos anymore. Ace frowned. Of course I am. She paused before actually thinking about it. Not really, I guess. I am disappointed. Lafia nodded. Exactly, and Belle hasn't actually done anything against you. Ace frowned again, and she thought about it. I guess I'm more disappointed with how things turned out. The elf smiled. And what about the Xenos? The blonde shook her head. I don't know. Those monsters. I'll need to think about it more. Lafia nodded. That's a start at least. Ace looked away, but I still couldn't beat Belle twice. Even after using the Avenger skill, I couldn't even scratch on him. Lafia's smile strained. Belle's, well, he's an anomaly. He's a hero, and he's got so many spirits with him. He's getting so many heroes so quickly that I gave up trying to keep up. Ace looked down, but still, I can't kill the black dragon if I stay like this. Everything I've done all these years would have been for nothing. The elf grabbed Ace by the shoulders. It wouldn't have been for nothing. You're here now, aren't you? With all of us. Ace was startled by the sudden outburst, and she looked away. It doesn't matter. When the black dragon comes, everyone will die, and I won't be able to avenge my family. Lafia frowned. And how do you know we'll die? The blonde didn't meet her eyes, because we're all too weak. The elf took a deep breath. Then I'll get stronger. I'll get strong enough to protect you and everyone in our familia. I promise. I'll become your hero, Ace-san. Ace's eyes widened, and she stared at Lafia, speechless. The younger girl's face flushed when she realized what she'd said, and she pulled away. Oh, look, I know I'm talking big. Be but dash. Lafia was cut off when Ace pulled the elf into a hug. Ace-san. Ace took a deep breath. Thank you, Lafia. What you said, it means a lot to me. The elf's face reddened more. H happy to hear that. The blonde pulled away. I think I'll try and talk to Belle later. Lafia nodded. You don't have to do it now. Ace nodded before she looked at the elf. Do you want to train together? The elf blinked. Huh? Like now? The blonde nodded. Yes, now. Lafia gaped. But didn't you just fight Belle? Ace shook her head. It's not enough. She looked at Lafia. Besides, if you want to become my hero, you need to get stronger, right? The elf paused before she gained a determined face. All right, let's train. The pair left the room, headed for their training area once more. Line break. Meanwhile, Freya sat on her throne in the Folkvanger, overlooking the city of Orio. Are you sure this is fine? The goddess turned to see her trusty attendant. Now what are you referring to, my dear Horn? The young woman answered, allowing the Gale Wind to go on a date with Belle Cranel. Freya gained an amused smile. Now why not? Horn paused, and the goddess giggled. You're worried Belle will choose Ryuu over me. No, you're worried he'll choose Ryuu over Syr. The attendant nodded. In the end, he knows not of your greatness. Freya's lips thinned slightly. And that is why I want it done this way, Horn. She looked out of the balcony. You should know this by now, Belle will be my otter. But I don't want to force it. Not if possible. Freya leaned back in her seat. Plus, Ryuu is very important to me, and I'm sure she is to you too. Now that she's become honest with her feelings, I want to keep it that way. Horn furrowed her brows. The goddess smiled dryly. You're not happy with my decision? The attendant lowered her head. I would never. Freya snorted. Horn, you and I are linked together. You know how I feel, and you. You don't have to hide these things. Horn didn't respond, and the goddess stood up, reaching out to caress Horn's face. I'm not mad, just so you know. Freya's lips curved upwards, but I'm annoyed that you told Otter and the others about our date with him. Horn tensed up, much to the goddess' amusement, and Freya continued. Maybe once this is over, I'll have you take over as Syr and be with Belle for a while. Maybe a few weeks before I tell him the truth about me. The attendant's eyes widened. Huh? Freya smiled knowingly. Come on now, I said it before, we're linked. You feel what I feel, and I feel what you feel. I doubt it's anywhere near my feelings, or even Ryuu's, but you like him more than most, don't you? Horn simply lowered her head more, not trusting herself to answer verbally, but she knew the goddess already had an answer. The goddess laughed softly. I'll be heading back to Babel, okay? Horn nodded. Of course. Freya nodded and walked out of her throne room. Meanwhile, Bel sat on his bed in his room, his eyes closed as he reached into the heroic spirits he'd inherited to figure out what he could do for his dates with Ryuu and Syr. The boy furrowed his brows as he tried to envision his dates with the two girls through the experiences of the memories he'd inherited. Bel palmed his face. Gilgamesh and Achilles were both downright useless. The king of Uruk never really went on dates, but rather courted multiple women throughout his reign. The boy was pretty sure Ryuu nor Syr would appreciate it if he started acting like Gilgamesh during their dates. It was the same with Achilles. The hero of Greece was too arrogant, and the dates he'd gone on were mostly with women who were huge fans of the hero. The memories that actually came in handy were the likes of Chevalier Gon, Gawain, Lancelot, and Yemaiwaye. The Knights of the Round Table were famous in their own right and had a good amount of experience. They were generally respectful too, something the boy felt he should do. Dion was also mainly involved in espionage and was often required to court men and women alike, but mostly nobles or high-ranking members of the government. Bel sighed as he fell back onto his bed. This is hard. Huh. Never thought I'd see you racking your brain over something. The boy turned to see Aisha at his door. Aisha, what are you doing here? The Amazonas folded her arms under her chest. Heroheims with Mikoto and Cassandra. Daphne went to meet some old friends when she was in the Apollo Familia, and Welf's hiding in his forge. Was wandering around before I came across your room. Bel hummed. I see. Aisha walked in. So, what's troubling our powerful captain? The boy closed his eyes, and he figured if there was someone who had an idea, it'd be Aisha. Promise you won't laugh. The Amazonas raised an eyebrow, sure. Bel took a deep breath. I'll be taking Ryuu-san and Syr-san on dates for the Goddess Festival on separate days. Aisha blinked, and she blinked again as she quickly realized what Bel was troubled about. The Amazonas chuckled, before her chuckle turned into full-blown laughter. Bel's face flushed, and he glared at the older woman. You said you wouldn't laugh. Aisha continued laughing, but she quickly took deep breaths as she calmed herself down. Ah, sorry about that. Of all the things. The Amazonas took a deep breath. All right, I guess there are things our great hero doesn't know about. Bel just glared at her. I shouldn't have told you. Aisha grinned. Look, I'll try my best to help. So what's bothering you? The boy sighed. I don't know what to do. The woman nodded. So you've got no idea at all? Bel nodded. Well, I do have a bit of an idea from the memories I've inherited, but it won't be the same. Plus, they want me to make a decision after I've gone on both dates. Aisha blinked. A decision? The boy nodded. Ryuu-san told me how she felt, and Syr-san did too, so they wanted to use the Goddess Festival for me to choose between them. Aisha grimaced. Ah, so it's serious. Bel nodded. That's the problem. I'm not sure what to do for the dates. The Amazonas nodded. Well, I think you're overthinking it. The boy blinked. Overthinking it. Aisha nodded. Look, I can't say I've gone on a lot of dates. I've always been more of a have fun in bed sort of person. But you're looking at an elf and a waitress, and both of them like you a great deal already. Bel nodded. So what do I do? The Amazonas smirked. Just don't worry too much about it and have fun. You're not going to impress someone. They're trying to impress you. You can plan a bit, but I think the main thing is to have fun. The boy's eyes widened when he heard her words, and Bel looked up at the ceiling. Have fun, huh? Aisha nodded. Exactly. If you don't have fun, they'll both end up worrying about you, and your date will be ruined. That's the last thing you want. The white-haired rabbit smiled. I guess you're right. The Amazonas smiled. That said, I'm not saying you should go in blind. The goddess festivals always end up being similar to the prior ones, so I can give you a rough idea of what you can do. Plus, the Ishtar Familia is heavily involved in this too. Bel nodded. Makes sense considering this festival is meant to celebrate the goddesses of fertility and harvest. Aisha nodded. Exactly, the 5 goddesses of harvest and fertility will be enshrined on the pillars around the town square, so we've always been involved one way or another. The boy sat up. All right, I'll be counting on you. The Amazonas smirked. Of course. Line break. The next morning, Bel was walking towards the city square where the goddess festival was to be held. As he walked, the white-haired teen spotted a young boy running to him. Hello, mister. Bel smiled. Hello. The boy pulled his hand. Can you come with me? The adventurer blinked. Is everything okay? Do you need help or something? The boy nodded. Yes, can you come with me? It won't take long. Bel considered the idea for a moment before he nodded. All right. The white-haired adventurer followed the young boy through a few small alleys, and Bel quickly felt as if something was amiss. The adventurer asked, So, what did you need help with? The boy looked back with a sheepish smile. Well, you'll understand when we get there. Bel hummed. All right. Soon, Bel was led to a small opening, and the young boy suddenly bolted and turned into another alley. Bel frowned and tried to follow after him. But the moment he reached the alley, the boy was nowhere to be found. The captain of the Hestia Familia sighed, and he looked around. He was in a pretty secluded area, surrounded by a few empty and seemingly abandoned shops. Fight forevermore, O immortal soldiers of lightning. Bell's eyes snapped into focus when he heard the chant. Salus Hilder. Bell turned, and he quickly spotted a hooded figure, multiple arrows of lightning above him. That was the only warning the boy had before the lightning arrows shot towards him. Bell narrowed his eyes as he backed away, dodging the lightning arrows with ease. Who are you? The figure snorted, but did not answer as he dashed forward with his Desaria. The boy backed away, load Gilgamesh. The hooded figure swung his blade at Bell, only for the boy to parry it with a golden axe. Bell narrowed his eyes. Answer me. The figure snorted again. It matters not. All it matters is that I'm taking you in. The boy frowned and kicked his hooded assailant away. And if I say no, the hooded Hadeen spoke, then I'll wipe out the Hestia Familia. He raised his hands. Fight forevermore, O immortal soldiers of lightning. C8 dash. The man was cut off as he spotted multiple golden flashes before his lightning arrows were all struck down by Bell's weapons. Hadeen's eyes widened in shock. What? The boy breathed in as a dozen golden portals appeared behind him. You'll wipe out the Hestia Familia, you say? His eyes glowed a bloody red with annoyance. I'd like to see you try Mongrel. Hadeen seethed. Mongrel, you dare call me Ammo dash. He was cut off, forced to back away to avoid being impaled by a spear. Bell stared at the hooded elf with indifference. And what else would you be? Hadeen scowled under his hood. I have no idea why she's so obsessed. You're nothing like how they described you. The boy raised an eyebrow. They? So you're here on orders then? The elf frowned. No dash. Bell let out a breath and cut him off. Doesn't matter. You'll tell me one way or another once we're done here. The boy swung his free arm, commanding the weapons to protrude through the portals before firing all of them. Hadeen grunted as he parried a few of them, but that was all he managed before the weapons tore into him, sending him crashing into the wall. Bell raised an eyebrow when he saw the elf's face. Hadeen Selland, the Hilder Sleef? He approached the fallen elf. I don't believe I've done anything to warrant the hostility from the Freya Familia. In fact, I thought we had a pretty okay relationship. The elf grunted as he struggled to get off the ground, and Bell hummed. I suppose I'll just have to ask Freysama or Ottersand straight up. The boy was almost right in front of Hadeen, but before he could grab the elf, Bell backed away to avoid a slash from a black blade. Bell raised an eyebrow when he saw Hogni land in front of Hadeen, Hogni Ragnar, so the white and black knights of the Freya Familia are both here. Hadeen grunted in pain. Hogni, what are you doing here? Hogni frowned. That's my line, Hadeen. The former king of the white elves grimaced in pain. Not even speaking in riddles. I see you're not in a good mood. The dark elf turned his attention back to Bell. Of course not. She'll be quite mad if she finds out. Oh, definitely. You screwed up. Bell hummed as he noticed 4 armored prums land around them. So the Bringnars too? I don't think I've actually met all of you before, so I'm actually quite confused. Alfred spoke up. That's none of your business. Valen nodded. We're just here to bring this dumb elf back. Grur continued. We have no further business with you. Burling finished, so you can back off and go on your merry way. The heir to the throne snorted. And you believe you can just drop in and tell me to walk away like nothing happened? The Hildersleif just threatened to attack my familia. I can't just let that slide. And you're talking pretty big for a third rate. Bell glanced his right to see Alan landing on the ground, spear in hand. Vanna Freya, so most of the executives are here. The cat person scoffed when he saw the wounded Hadeen on the ground. What a joke. He glared at Hogni. I've had enough. Bring that sorry excuse back before things get worse. The dark elf nodded. I'll dash. Bell cut them off. And who said you can go? The white-haired boy's eyes gleamed dangerously. I need answers. With that said, multiple swords stabbed between Hogni and Hadeen, effectively stopping the dark elf from reaching for his friend. Alan smirked murderously, recognizing the hostile intent in Bell's posture. You know, I've been meaning to put you in your place. Alfred's eyes widened. Wait, Alan. The cat person brandished his spear. Can it? He ain't letting this go without a fight. And if he wants one, I'll give him one. Bell simply glanced at Alan, and the spearman dashed forward, but before he could reach Bell, multiple weapons shot out from above, forcing Alan to dash to his right. To the cat person's surprise, Bell's eyes easily kept up with his movements. Alan scowled and hastened his pace before dashing in for a thrust. Yet to his surprise, a spear and an axe suddenly appeared in his path, blocking his thrust effectively. Bell sighed. So this is Aurario's fastest adventurer. I am disappointed. Alan scowled. What did you just say? The boy snorted. Exactly as I said. Let me show you. Overload, Achilles, Atalanta. The powers of the 2 Greek heroes known for their speed filled Bell's body, and the boy blurred. Alan's eyes widened as he barely managed to bring his spear up in time to block a swing from Bel's own spear. But that was all he could manage before Bel blurred once more, striking Alan's spear to his side before landing a heavy strike to the older adventurer's face with the blunt end of his spear. The cat person was sent stumbling backwards, snarling at the boy. Alan sprang to his feet, thrusting his spear at the younger man. Bel snorted as he let Achilles' memories guide him, and to everyone's shock, stopped Alan's thrust by grabbing the shaft of the spear. The cat person's eyes widened in shock. How? The boy's eyes glowed with power. Too bad, but I guess that's as much as a third-rate, no, a fifth-rate can do. Alan exploded with anger. You dash. He was cut off when Bel struck him with the blunt end of his spear, sending the cat person sprawling to the ground. Alan growled and tried to get up, only for Bel to kick him in the gut fast and hard, sending him crashing into the wall next to Hayden and Hogni. Bel snorted before turning his attention to the four proms. Now, I suppose you're next. Alfred Fronet, impossible. How are you faster and stronger than Alan? Alan asked. You're just a level 4, aren't you? The boy raised an eyebrow. Level 4? All right. I don't suppose it's been updated yet. Huh? I'm a level 5 now. Broling's eyes widened in shock. Level 5. Grur gaped. Then he's the same level as we are? Bel nodded. That's right. The boy looked around him, looking at the four proms and the two L's one at a time. So, now that we've stopped fighting, I'd like some answers. Bel narrowed his eyes. He had been trying to shed some light through Shan Nakba, Imuru, but he just couldn't see anything aside from their personal thoughts and intentions. It was clear that the Bringnars and Dainsleif weren't keen on fighting him, despite Hayden and Alan's obvious acts of aggression. And no matter how much he tried to look, it all came down to the fact that they were all loyal to Freya and no one else. The white-haired boy thinned his lips after a moment of silence. So, nothing. The five were all hesitant, but Bel had waited long enough. I see. Then you leave me no choice. With a swing of his hand, every one of the Freya Familia members currently present found themselves in chains. Bel willed the chains of Enkidu to lift all 7 of them up. Alfred grunted as he struggled against the chains. What is this? Dvalin grunted. I can't get out. Grur frowned as he tried to move. What are these chains? Burling struggled against his bindings. I can't move at all. Alan growled and snarled as he did his best to free himself, to no avail, something mirrored by Hogni. Bel lowered his arms, releasing his hold on Achilles and Atalanta's powers, but still maintaining Gilgamesh's powers in his body. The boy looked around him now. Dash. And just what is going on here? Bel turned to see Freya and Otter behind her, and he narrowed his eyes as Shan Nakba, Imuru, did its work. The boy spared Otter a brief glance, quickly recognizing the wariness from the Boaz, yet the goddess had no such concerns. Freya smiled. It's been a while, Bel. I'm really happy to see you, but can you let those boys go? I promise nothing will happen to you. Bel stared at the goddess for a brief moment. A while? We just met each other last night, didn't we, Syr-san? Freya's eyes widened in shock. What are you, Dash? The boy cut her off. Vanaseeth, was it? Bel took a mental note of Otter's discomfort, along with Freya's surprise. The goddess quickly realized her blunder, and she spoke. I see. Gilgamesh, you have his clairvoyance. The boy nodded. That's right. Unfortunately, I can't exactly see through everything here. He stared at Freya. So why attack me? Why threaten to wipe out my familia? The goddess of love's eyes widened. What? Where did you hear that from? Bel glanced at Hayden's wounded figure. Hayden Selland here. I'm not amused, Freya. The goddess almost glared at the elf, but she controlled herself. Bel, I promise you, I would never even think of hurting you. The boy stared at Freya and Otter neutrally, but for the goddess who could see the souls of the mortals, it was clear. Before, Bel always had borderline unwavering trust and care for Syr. Even towards Freya, Bel had shown to be neutral at worst. But now, Bel's soul looked undoubtedly more guarded against her. That trust that Syr would always see was no longer there. Freya took a shaky breath. Please, we can talk about this. The two stared at each other for a moment, one pleadingly, one neutrally. Bel let out a breath. All right. The chains loosened, releasing all of the executives of the Freya Familia he had in chains. Yet despite being freed, none of them moved, not even Otter. The 8 men had seen the look on their goddess face. As much as it frustrated them, they knew what it meant. Bel took a step forward, immediately drawing everyone's attention. Let's talk somewhere quieter. Freya nodded, as she pulled her hood up before they all followed the young adventurer into the streets. A short walk later, the 10 of them found themselves in the burnt and abandoned church that used to be the Hestia Familia's first home. Hogni had used a potion to heal most of Hayden's wounds, while the others were not as wounded to the point they needed treatment. As soon as they reached the ruins, Otter looked at the rest of his fellow Familia members, and they all silently agreed to back off. Soon, it was just Freya and Bel, though the boy could easily tell that every one of the adventurers were nearby. The boy snorted. Protective bunch, aren't they? Freya smiled dryly. I suppose they are. Belle let out a breath. So? Horn and you're both Syr. The goddess nodded. Seath. It's a magic-only horn, and by extension, myself can use. Through it, we become one and the same, taking on each other's appearances. The boy nodded, turning away to look at the burned altar. Why attack me? Freya took a deep breath. I didn't order Deai to attack you. That's right, it was my decision, and mine alone. Belle and Freya turned to see Deai and Otter at the door, the elf sporting a dissatisfied expression on his face. The boy breathed, his sharp red eyes looking as if he was piercing through Deai. Why? Freya looked at the former king expectantly, and Deai lowered his head. I wanted to test you. Then after that, I plan to educate you to provide Syr-sama the best date she could possibly experience. I never planned to attack your familia at all. Belle narrowed his eyes. That last part was a lie. You were prepared to eradicate my familia at any moment's notice. But you were also convinced that it wouldn't come to that. The elf's eyes widened. How did you dash? The boy snorted. My eyes are not for show. I can see through a lot of things, including the truths behind your actions. Unfortunately, the divine is not something I'm always able to grasp. Freya pursed her lips. She knew Deai had told a lie at the very end, and she quickly realized any attempts to lie would not be good. Belle sighed. This is a joke. I can't believe I almost lost it because you were being overprotective. The white elf said nothing, and the goddess blinked. Belle, why you're not angry? He ran his hand through his hair. Of course I am. I had no idea why Deai suddenly attacked me and threatened to kill my familia. I couldn't see the truth before, possibly because the truth was shrouded by the existence of Seath. Belle let out a breath. In the end, this was pretty much just a huge misunderstanding. Freya gained a hopeful look, then dash. The boy knew what she was going to ask, and he cut her off. I'm still coming to terms with this. I still have questions. The goddess could only nod. I understand. Belle stared at Deai coldly. And if you ever even think of attacking us, I won't hold back like I did earlier. To make his point, he released a surge of divinity from Gilgamesh's existence, also revealing hundreds of golden portals from behind him, but before quickly dispelling them. Deai did his best not to let his shock show. I'll keep that in mind. Belle took a deep breath. Freya, or should I call you Syr? Freya shook her head. Either is fine. The boy looked at her, his eyes glowing red as if trying to read the goddess. All this while at the hostess. Was that all a lie? The goddess shook her head quickly. No. She took a breath. Believe me, every moment I spent at that bar, all of it is real. All of you there, Ryuu, Anya, Lunwar, Chloe, all of you mean a lot to me. Belle's expression didn't change. Gilgamesh's experience of maintaining a poker face come in handy here, I see. Freya nodded. And what I told you, with Ryuu, about the goddess festival, that was real too. The white-haired adventurer asked. And how long were you planning to hide? That Syr was Freya too? She looked down. I wanted to be with you as Syr. Once I was ready, I was going to tell you. Belle furrowed his brows. But you hid it from Ryuu and everyone there, even before I joined the hostess. Freya snapped her head at him. But you're different. I would have told you everything. The boy asked again, would you? The goddess opened her mouth to answer again, before she paused, and she fell silent after actually considering the question. Belle nodded. I figured. Deai scowled and spoke up. And what would you have her do? Belle Cranel. Did you expect her to just show up and tell everyone they're the normal city waitress was the goddess Freya all along dash? Deai. Freya cut him off, and the elf clenched his fists. I apologize. The boy looked at him. I know it is not that simple. Everyone has their own secrets. You have yours, and I have my own. Belle narrowed his eyes. But I hope you remember, Freya, Syr's secrets have led you to attack me. They've put my familia at risk. Deai exploded. And why would a meager familia matter to dash? Freya glared at him. Deai. The elf froze at her glare, and the goddess almost screamed. Do not make this worse than it already is. The heir to the throne of heroes closed his eyes. Freya, Syr means a lot to me. You mean a lot to Ryuu and everyone at the hostess. Belle opened his eyes. Tonight at midnight. I'll wait for you at the hostess tonight. Freya's eyes widened. The hostess? The boy nodded. We're all too emotional now. It won't matter what we say to each other now. He stared her in the eye. Tonight, I want to see who you truly are. No disguises. No magic, no tricks. Freya's eyes widened in shock before she nodded. I understand. I will. Belle nodded. I hope you'll at least tell Ryuu too. If what the two of you told me earlier is true, I want her to know too. The goddess nodded. I suppose that is fair. The white-haired hero nodded. Then I'll see you later. Freya smiled softly. Thank you, Belle. With that said, Belle walked out of the abandoned church, and he soon saw Otter standing before him. The Boaz stared at him. and Belle stared back. Otter spoke. You've grown stronger to be able to take down Hayden and the others. Belle responded, yeah. The Boaz hummed. Let's hope we don't have to cross blades seriously anytime soon. Belle snorted. I hope so too. The Boaz nodded before stepping aside, and Belle simply continued walking away from the church. The boy didn't need to look back to know the other executive members of the Freya Familia were watching him, but he didn't care. Belle had a lot to think about. Chapter 49. Author note. Hey, I'm back. Been quite busy with work, life, and family. Not to mention, FGO Summer 8 and the F/SNXHSR collab happened. Managed to get everyone I wanted, so that's that. Unfortunately, farming for those events took a huge chunk of my time, hence the late update. Beowulf 43. Look forward to when Belle actually loses his shit and nukes everyone. Honestly, I'm trying to figure out when and how I can do it. Don't think Belle's ever gone bonkers with anger. Shinigami 200. It definitely won't be a harem in the sense that Belle will only be with Ryuu and potentially maybe Syr/Freya. Even now, I'm extremely torn on whether I should include Syr. XBOY 40. Scat hack is a hard one. I'm trying to have Belle inherit mainly heroes and potentially anti-heroes. And even if we were to add a Celtic hero, it'll definitely be Cu Chulin first, which might not be anytime soon. Anime Fan 13579. Technically, yes, if Belle gets together with both Syr and Ryuu, it'd be a foursome. But in that sense, I think Horn would be more guarded and would do absolutely everything to not admit that she's affected by the carryover effect. Or at least, not to the extent of her joining the relationship. But again, you never know. P294369676. Oh, Belle has so many different noble phantasms that would wipe the floor with anyone who crosses him. It's not even funny. Draco King 30. Ask, and you shall receive. Here's a new chapter. XXX. A while after Belle left the abandoned church, the white-haired adventurer found himself back in his room. Belle sat down on his bed, letting out a sigh. Was I too harsh? Sha Nakba and Muru had shown him a lot when he looked at Otter and the other executive members of the Freya Familia. Granted, the clairvoyance hadn't quite shown him much, if any. When he looked at Freya, Belle could tell just how much he meant to the goddess. But at the same time, Belle also saw what Freya, or Syr, had done for her and to the other members of the hostess. Lenoir and Chloe were relatively fine in the scheme of things, but Belle also worried how Ryuu and Anya would react, especially now that he had also seen the truth from Alan. Belle palmed his face, and he shook his head. First, I need something to eat. Or drink. The boy stood up, and he started heading for the kitchen. As he walked through the hallways of the mansion, Belle spotted a familiar face he hadn't quite seen in a while. Ishtar. The goddess of Venus evidently noticed him too. Ah, Belle Cranel. Fancy meeting you here. Belle asked, what are you doing here? Ishtar smiled wryly. Well, considering I'll be heavily involved in the Goddess Festival in the coming weeks, I dropped by to have a chat with your supporter and goddesses. The boy raised an eyebrow. Right, you'll be on top of the pillar for a few days straight. Won't you? The goddess snorted. Unfortunately. Belle nodded. I see. I suppose it is a pain. Ishtar scoffed. It's not as bad as it seems. All we do is sit there and look good. The heir to the throne of heroes hummed. Fair enough. Belle walked past her, but before he could leave, Ishtar spoke up. And what about you? The boy raised an eyebrow. Me? The goddess turned to look at him. That's right. Something is bothering you. Ishtar's lips curved upwards when she saw his confused look. You don't have to hide it. I've had enough men confide with me that I can tell when someone is troubled. Belle stared her in the eye. Before he shook his head, it's not something you need to worry about. The goddess' smirk grew. Let me guess, issues with women? That's a common problem with you heroic types, isn't it? The boy frowned. How did you know? Ishtar laughed softly. Boy, have you forgotten who I am? Besides, there are only a few things that can trouble a man so much. The goddess smirked. How about it? I might seem like this, but I can keep secrets pretty nicely. Belle stared at her for a moment. Thanks for the offer, but I'll pass. Ishtar's smirk fell slightly. Well, suit yourself then. The boy turned and headed for the kitchen, leaving the goddess of fertility. As she watched Belle walk away, Ishtar snorted before turning to head for the door. Line break. Meanwhile, back at the Folkvanger, Otter and the rest of the executives sat in their meeting room. Alfred asked, is this really okay? Alan Scout, what is? Devalin continued, letting Freya-sama go to the hostess and all that. Hayden sighed. There's nothing much we can do. It's what she decided. Berling glared at him. You shut up. This is all your fault. Grur nodded. That's right, your fault. The elf glared back at the proms. This is my fault? How dash? Quiet, all of you. Otter's firm and quiet voice sounded, and everyone looked at him. The Boaz looked at Hayden. Hayden, say what you will, but it is a fact that your actions have brought about Belle Cranel's anger. That anger is directed at you, a high-level member of the Freya Familia, and by extension, towards Freya-sama as well. The elf glared at Otter, But the captain of the Familia didn't let him speak. Bel Cranel will be her odd. The moment he accepts, that will be the end of it. We all knew this was coming. Hayden scoffed. But that will be of no consequence if he chooses the gale wind. Alan snorted. And how can you know he will? Otter spoke up. Either way, none of us here are qualified to be her otter. Right now, there's only one man worthy, and he is not at this table. The Boaz added. If any of us were worthy, she would have acted a long time ago. Otter looked at every one of the members at the table, and all of them were silent, even Hogni. The Boaz nodded to himself before he stood up. That is all I will say. Do what you will. With that said, Otter left the meeting room. The moment the Boaz was gone, Hogni looked at Hayden. What are we going to do, Hayden? Hayden sighed. Nothing. We knew this was coming. If Bel Cranel truly is her otter, then that is all there is to it. The former king of the Dark Elves protested. But what if he isn't? Hayden snorted. Don't tell me you've never noticed. How often do you see our goddess spending time with any of us in the past few months? Ever since Bel Cranel showed up, she hasn't looked at us the same way again. Not even Otter. The white elf took a deep breath. This isn't the same as when she gets a new familiar member that she fancies. This is the real deal. The dark elf frowned. Then what if we dash? The white elf breathed out. If you're thinking of taking him out, forget it. Right now, he is wary. He'll see us coming, and none of us will be a match for him. Alan scoffed. Speak for yourself. You got taken out even when you got the drop on him. Hayden glared at the cat person. And I don't want to hear it from you. I'm not the one who got outpaced in speed. Alan glowered at him. You looking for a fight? The elf snorted. You're making it very tempting. You sorry excuse of a vice captain. The cat person stood up, and Hayden stared back firmly, not backing down at all. Hogni spoke up. Stop. Both of you. Both level 6 adventurers spared the dark elf a glance, and he frowned. Our goddess is troubled. I know we don't want her to truly meet her otter. Hogni took a deep breath. I don't want to lose our goddess. But more than anything, he looked at Hayden and Alan. I don't want her to be sad. The 6 other adventurers around them fell silent, unsure of how to react. Hayden glowered at the table. He knew what set Bel apart from them, and he cursed both himself and the white-haired human for it. Line break. At the same time, in Freya's room, the goddess stood in front of the window, watching the setting sun. Freya-sama, are you sure it's wise if I show up with you? Freya turned to see Horn some distance away, her face expressionless as usual, but years of sharing the same identity told her otherwise. Her attendant was worried, yet also furious at the same time. The goddess nodded. I cannot think of a better way. Bel wants me to show him who I truly am. Say what you may, Horn, you are a part of me, just as much as I'm a part of you. Freya smiled. To show him who I truly am, I need to show him everything. Freya and Syr and Horn. Horn looked down. I see. The goddess turned back to watching the city. How are the others? The attendant lowered her head. They are confused, for the lack of a better word. Freya's lips thinned. Is that so? Horn nodded. Knowing them, they must not be ready for the day you actually find your otter. The goddess shook her head. I suppose not. The young woman looked at Freya. What should we do? The goddess of love kept her gaze at the windows. I love all of them deeply, but I am finally able to convey my feelings to Bel. Freya snorted, holding her wrist with her other hand. What a joke. I'm the goddess of love and beauty. I am sought after by many, yet I'm worried that Bel won't accept me. Horn frowned. He will. He'd be a fool if he didn't. Freya smiled dryly. Horn, you've spoken to him as Syr, right? The attendant raised an eyebrow. Yes. May I ask why you asked? The goddess didn't look at her. When you interacted with him as Syr, how did he seem to you? Has he ever been guarded? Horn shook her head. No. The human has always been kind and happy around us. Freya nodded. Earlier, his eyes had none of that kindness. The trust and care he held for Syr, it's not what it was before. The young woman's eyes widened. He dares dash. Freya turned to her. It is not his fault, Horn. If I were to suddenly have someone attack you, or any of our familiar members, how would you feel? Horn narrowed her eyes. You would never, the goddess snorted. And if I were to order Otter to kill you right now? The attendant lowered her head. It would be justified. Freya sighed. I love you, Horn, but I wish you would be honest with me on these things. I thought we were closer than that. Horn didn't speak, and the goddess caressed her face. Even the thought of me abandoning you fills you with pain, doesn't it? The attendant didn't respond, but her silence was an answer enough, and Freya continued. I'm sure it's not to the same extent, but I've hurt Bel in that same way. Horn frowned. But that's because of Hayden. Surely Bel Cranel would understand. The goddess smiled. The heart and the mind do not always think nor feel the same way. Hayden is a part of my familia, and his actions were for and because of me. Freya took a deep breath. That's why I need to make this right. Horn only nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The goddess sighed again. I'll cleanse myself in the baths. Then we should get ready to head to the hostess. Horn nodded before she asked, are you planning to tell Anya Fromel as well? Freya paused before she nodded. Anya is also a member of the hostess. I don't want to ruin her memories, but it needs to be done. The gray-haired woman looked at the goddess before she nodded. Very well. Line break. Soon, night came, and after making and having dinner for his familia, Bel made his way towards the hostess of fertility. As he walked under the night sky, Bel noticed a familiar giant figure standing near a street lamp powered by magic stones. The white-haired boy came to a stop some distance away. Otter-san. The Boaz nodded in acknowledgement. Bel Cranel. So you've come. Bel let out a breath. Yeah. It is near midnight, after all. Otter nodded before he asked, can I ask you a question? The boy looked at him curiously. Sure, what is it? The Boaz closed his eyes. What do you plan to do with our goddess? Bel breathed out. That depends on her. Otter opened his eyes and looked the boy in the eye, and by that. The boy sighed. I mean it literally. I'm not angry, more annoyed than anything, and more towards the Hildresleaf. The Boaz nodded before he spoke again. Let me rephrase my question. Once Freya-sama has revealed herself to the hostess, who will you choose? The Gale Wind or Syr-sama? Bel stared at Otter before he shook his head. I honestly can't tell you right now. As it is, I don't even know how I feel about her anymore, or if I even know her at all. Otter regarded the boy. She cares a lot for you, more than anyone. She intends for you to be her Otter. The boy could easily guess what that meant, and Bel sighed. I see. The Boaz studied the young hero before him. Many will do anything to be in your shoes. Bel snorted. Is that so? Otter nodded. Yes. The white-haired adventurer looked at the larger man. And you're not jealous? Angry. The Boaz shook his head. No, I am of course disappointed, but more at myself. And I was never under the illusion that I could ever be her Otter. Bel raised an eyebrow. Why not? Otter snorted. I grew up on the streets. It was Freya-sama that found me, brought me into her care. My strength is the only thing I can offer her, but her Otter must not only be able to offer her power. The Boaz extended a hand to him. You have shown all of us, time after time, that you offer her more than strength. You alone in Oreo are worthy to be her Otter. The boy fell silent before he spoke again. I see. Otter studied Bel's expression, and he lowered his hand. You've made your decision. Bel let out a breath. I have an idea of what I want to do, but I still want to make that decision after I listen to her. The Boaz nodded. Very well. Then I shall not keep you any longer. Otter stepped aside, and Bel nodded. Thank you. With that said, the boy walked past the man, and the Boaz turned and walked off after watching Bel head for the hostess. Line break. A short while earlier, a little before midnight, Syr and Horn stood right outside the hostess of fertility. Syr had a determined expression on her face, and Horn just stood behind the goddess in disguise. The waitress took a deep breath. All right, let's do this. Syr pushed the door open, and as expected, she was met with the sight of her colleagues cleaning up the pub. Ryuu quickly noticed her. Syr, what are you doing here at a time like this? The goddess in disguise looked at the elf, and she smiled. I had something I needed to do. Is Bel-san here yet? Bel Naya? No, he's not rostered to work tonight, Naya. Chloe's voice reached her ears, and Syr turned to see the cat person carrying some chairs. Lenoir walked out from wiping the tables. Why is the nameless with you, Syr? Syr glanced back at Horn, and she smiled. She's here with me for that thing I needed to do. The former bounty hunter hummed. I see. Well, as long as she doesn't cause any trouble, I think it'll be fine. The gray-haired girl smiled. Is Mamma Mia at the back? Lenoir nodded. Yeah, she should be cleaning up the stoves and cooking ware. Syr nodded. I'll go see her then. She looked at Horn. Horn, come with me. The attendant nodded. Understood. The pair walked through the dining area towards the kitchen, and Anya asked Ryuu from the side, why is Horn with Syr, Naya? The elf kept her gaze on Horn, who simply followed Syr into the kitchen. I have no idea. With Syr and Horn, the pair entered the kitchen, and they quickly found Mia, putting a walk away. Mamma Mia. The dwarf looked at the pair, and she raised her eyebrow. Syr and Horn. What are you two doing here at this time? Syr smiled softly. Bel-san found out. Mia blinked. Found out? About what? The goddess in disguise spoke. About who I really am. The dwarf's face steeled. I see. Let's talk in my room. Syr nodded, and they followed Mia upstairs to her master bedroom. The dwarf closed the door behind her, and she looked at Syr and Horn. So, from the sounds of it, it didn't go well. What happened? The silver-haired waitress answered. Hayden attacked him and threatened to wipe out his familia. The dwarf snorted. Of course he did, and Syr continued. Bel fought back, and he almost killed Hayden. He also defeated Alan and the four brothers. Mia raised an impressed eyebrow. Oh, now that's impressive. The silver-haired waitress smiled. I tried to defuse the situation as Freya, but Bel saw right through me. His noble phantasm. He immediately knew who I was. The dwarf hummed, I see. How'd he react? Syr looked down. He was angry, furious even. Mia snorted, I suppose he'd be. One of the girls who confessed to him turns out to be the goddess Freya. And then familia members of that same goddess attack him and threaten to destroy his familia. Syr nodded. That's why we're here. We promised to meet here at midnight to talk things out, and I would tell the others who I truly am. The dwarf looked at her. You sure you want to do this? The goddess in disguise nodded. I'm sure. Mia sighed. All right, if you're sure. But I'll just say it now. Be careful how you do it. Syr nodded. I know. The dwarf shook her head. Do what you need to do. I'll try to make sure things don't blow up. The goddess in disguise smiled softly. Thank you, Mamma Mia. Mia snorted before she went for the door. Don't thank me yet. Meanwhile, Bell reached the hostess, and he saw the closed sign on the door before he pushed it open. As expected, the white-haired adventurer quickly saw the waitresses cleaning the place. Chloe was the first to notice him. Bell Naya, you're here. Bell nodded. Yeah, is Syr here yet? Ryuu walked over with a cloth in hand. Yes, Syr just want to talk to Mamma Mia. The boy hummed, I see. Anya asked. Syr said she had something to do. Do you know what she was talking about? Lunwar added. The Nameless was with her too. That was weird. Bell raised an eyebrow. The Nameless? So Horn. Ryuu nodded. Yes, she was following Syr closely. The boy nodded, I see. Chloe folded her arms. She was waiting for you, Naya. Bell breathed out, yeah, I know. The elf asked, so you do know what she needed to do. The boy looked at her. Yeah, but we'll wait until she's here. Bell glanced at Anya. And Anya. The cat person looked at him. Naya? The boy reconsidered his choices for a brief second. Stay calm. And don't overthink later, okay? Anya blinked in confusion. Okay. Everyone looked at him weirdly, but before they could voice their confusion, they heard footsteps from the stairs. Shortly, Mia walked into the dining area, with Syr and Horn behind her, so everyone is here. The dwarf looked at Belle for a brief moment, before she walked over to lock the door. Whatever happens here, I hope you don't regret it. Belle glanced at her. Did you know? Mia snorted. Of course I did. Did you think I hired her like a normal girl? The white-haired human nodded. Initially, yeah. Lunwar asked. What are the two of you talking about? Syr spoke up. It's about the thing I had to do, and why Horn is here with me. Ryuu asked. And what is it exactly? Horn spoke up. If I may, perhaps we should discuss this at a more private place? Mia nodded. Yeah, we can talk in the courtyard. That'll be plenty of space and privacy. A short moment later, everyone was in the courtyard, and Chloe asked, So, what's going on? Syr looked at everyone present. I have something I want to tell everyone here. It's a secret I've been keeping for a while now. Ryuu asked, A secret? The silver-haired waitress nodded. My true identity, or at least the other part of my identity, the goddess Freya. Everyone fell silent, and after a moment, Anya was the first to react. Huh. Everyone turned to look at her, and the cat person's eyes were dilated. I am possible. Syr pursed her lips, but chose to continue. It's the truth, Anya. I am Syr, and I'm also Freya. Her body glowed for a brief moment, before her hair grew longer, revealing the figure of Freya. Anya's eyes widened, and she started shaking. Freya looked at everyone around her. This is the truth. The cat person started hyperventilating, so, all this time, She almost jumped when she felt a hand on her shoulder, and Belle's voice reached her ears. Breathe, Anya, breathe. Anya looked at him. Be Bell Naya. The white-haired adventurer had an unreadable look on his face. Don't overthink it. Hear her out first. Anya took the time to breathe, and she let out a shaky breath. Thank you, Bell Naya. Lunwar sighed in relief. So, Syr is Freya. Freya nodded. That's right, but that's not all. She looked at Horn, and the attendants started to chant, Oh, unreachable stairs, forbidden gates. Today, this day, mind body shall exceed the laws of heaven. A magic circle formed beneath her, to the surprise of everyone around her except for Belle and Mia. And Horn continued, Oh, empty soul, unworthy desire, descend to this world in order of this traded true name, daughter of the gods. Vanasate. Horn's body glowed, and her hair shortened, revealing Syr in her place. Chloe gaped. What is going on here, Naya? Syr spoke in a voice everyone was familiar with. I am Syr, and I am also Horn. Ryuu looked confused, but isn't Freya? Freya nodded. That's right, I am Freya, and I am Syr, and she is Horn, but Horn is also Syr. Lunwar asked, How is this possible? Freya explained. It's possible through magic granted for my contract with her. Syr was originally her one true name, but through our contract, that name is now mine as well, and I granted her a name of my own, Horn. The goddess continued. In exchange, Horn can take my form as Freya, and we both can become Syr. As if to prove her point, Syr glowed again, becoming another Freya. Before both Freyas glowed, revealing Syr and Horn once more. Syr spoke up. This is my secret. I am both Syr and Freya, and Horn is also Syr. She looked at Belle. This is my answer, Belle. Belle nodded. I see. Anya looked at Syr. Syr? Freya-sama? I want to know, all this while was everything just an act? To keep an eye on me? The goddess in disguise shook her head. No, I was genuinely fine if you wanted to leave, but I couldn't just leave you in that alley alone. The hostess. I wanted to give you time to heal before you could decide what you wanted to do. Syr looked at Ryuu, Lunwar, and Chloe. Everything that happened here in the hostess, all of that was real. They all fell silent, and Horn asked, does this change how you feel towards her? The former bounty hunter folded her arms. Well, not really. If she says everything before was genuine, then nothing's really changed. Ryuu nodded slowly. Syr is still the same Syr we know, or is that wrong? Mia snorted. I'll just put it on this one. Everyone looked at the dwarf, and Mia looked at Syr. The girl is her real personality. The goddess is but something she created. I think it's about time you actually embrace the truth. Syr looked at the dwarf. Mamma Mia. Mia sighed. Look, let's be honest. How often do you enjoy being Freya instead of Syr? No, the correct question is how often do you feel you yourself when you're either one? The goddess looked down, but her silence gave the dwarf her answer, and Mia continued. Of course, I'm not saying you should just stop. That'll be catastrophic, and who knows what those boys will do. The dwarf gestured around her. At the very least, act yourself when you're here with us. Syr took a deep breath. You're not wrong. She smiled softly. No, you're exactly right. Chloe spoke up. Then, Syr is Syr Naya. It doesn't change anything. Ryuu smiled softly. If anything, it actually fits our ragtag group here. The girls all nodded before Anya asked, wait, so Horn-sama is also Syr Naya? Does that mean? Horn nodded. That's correct. On a few occasions, when Freya-sama needs to be out, I have taken her place as Syr here. Syr smiled. Well, to be honest, Horn shares all my memories as Syr, and sometimes even as Freya. In that sense, she is also the Syr that you know. Chloe oat. So that means we've got two Syrs now, Naya. The attendant looked down. I wouldn't say two. The one you truly know is still Freya-sama. Anya pursed her lips. I see. It'll take some time to get used to this, Naya. Lunwar looked at Belle. Speaking of, you don't look all that surprised. Mamma Mia, I understand, but did you know already? The boy nodded. Yeah, I found out not long ago. Ryuu quickly noticed his blank expression, and she asked worriedly, Belle, did something happen? Syr answered before he could speak. Hey, Dean attacked him, after finding out we were going on a date for the goddess festival. And most of the executives of my familia got involved too. That caught everyone's attention, but Mia spoke up before they could say anything, but Belle defeated them all. This dumb girl tried to help, but ended up blowing her cover. Belle nodded. Yeah, but I can accept that it's Hey Dean's fault for attacking me, and that's the same for the others. Ryuu spoke up. That's why you've been quiet. He took a deep breath. Look, I'm not holding this against her. Syr's given us her answer. It wouldn't be fair to her. Syr nodded. Then, Belle nodded. I'm the same as everyone else. Well, most of us anyway. The goddess in disguise let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Thank you. We're still going on that date? The white-haired human smiled softly. I don't see why not. He spared Anya a glance, but I think you and Anya should have a chat before we talk about our situation. Syr looked at the cat person, and she took a deep breath. I suppose that's fair. Mia nodded. Then I'll leave you to it. Just make sure none of you wreck anything. With that said, the dwarf walked off, and Lunwar asked, Anya, do you want us to leave? The younger cat person nodded. If you don't mind, Naya. The others looked at each other, and Chloe nodded. Okay, Naya, we'll be inside. The two young women looked at Ryuu and Belle, and the four nodded as they walked back towards the building. Before they could leave, Anya spoke up. Belle, Naya. Hey, after I'm done with Syr, Naya, can we talk, Naya? Belle glanced back, and he nodded. Of course. With that said, Belle and the other three walked out of the courtyard, leaving Anya, Syr, and Horn. As they reached the dining area, Lunwar sighed. Damn, that was something. Chloe nodded. To think Syr Naya was Freya-sama all along. Ryuu nodded, but Syr's still Syr. She's still our friend. The former bounty hunter folded her arms. I hope so. Belle spoke up. You don't have anything to worry about. She's still the same. The last thing she wants to do is hurt any of you here. Chloe looked at him. Your face tells us otherwise, Naya. The boy blinked before he smiled dryly. Was I that obvious? Ryuu and Lunwar both nodded at the same time, and the elf asked, Do you hate her? Belle breathed out. No, I need time to come to terms with this. Lunwar hummed. Well, as long as no one does anything extreme, then we should be all right. The elf nodded, and she looked down, many things on her mind. The black fist walked towards the back. I'm going to my room. Let me know when you're all done. We need to finish cleaning up, otherwise Mamma Mia is going to be mad. The three nodded, but before they could speak, they heard the door open. revealing Syr, Anya, and Horn. Ryuu asked, "Are you done with what you needed to talk about?" Anya nodded yes. "Everything's all right now, Naya." Chloe asked, "Really?" The shorter cat person nodded, "Really, Naya. It'll take time to get used to the part with Freya-sama, but Syr Naya is still Syr Naya, so that part hasn't changed." Bell nodded, a small smile on his face. "That's good to hear then." Anya looked at him. "I'm done now, so..." Bell nodded. "Yeah, you had something you wanted to talk about, right?" The cat girl nodded, and she gestured to the back. "Let's head to the back, Naya." The boy nodded, and he followed Anya to the back. As they walked off, Syr looked at Ryuu. "Ryuu, can we talk for a bit upstairs?" The elf nodded, "Of course." Chloe snorted. "So Anya's gone with Belle, and Syr's with Ryuu, Lunwar's off to her room, and that leaves me with you." Horn looked at the cat person neutrally. "That seems to be the case." The black-haired woman looked the nameless over. "I just really can't see Syr and Naya." Horn answered calmly, "Of course not." Chloe sighed. "You're not going to explain more, are Naya?" The attendant simply shook her head, "No." The cat person sighed again and started cleaning up, with Horn simply watching, until Mia's voice reached their ears. "What are you doing standing there? Get to work too." Horn almost jumped, and she turned to see Mia staring at her sternly, before she sighed and nodded, "Understood." The attendant went to rearrange the chairs and tables with obvious familiarity only a staff member would, and Chloe smiled as they silently cleaned the dining area. Meanwhile, Ryuu and Syr were in the elf's room, and Ryuu asked, "So, what did you want to talk about?" Syr closed the door behind her. "About everything." The elf raised an eyebrow. "Everything?" The goddess in disguise nodded. I know I said it before, but everything that happened here in the hostess, it was all real." Ryuu nodded. "I believe you." Syr smiled. "Thank you." Her smile dropped a little. "I hurt Bell. Because of my secret, Hayden and the others attacked him and threatened to wipe out his familia." The elf stayed silent, letting her friend continue. "I know he doesn't hate me, but..." Syr trailed off, and she looked at Ryuu. "In the end, I am Freya, and surely you've heard the rumors? I've slept with plenty of men before." Ryuu carefully spoke. "You're worried Belle won't choose you because of that." The goddess in disguise nodded. "That, and my familia, is complicated, for the lack of a better word." Syr looked at the door. "Already the members of my familia have attacked him, and not just anyone, but members that I trust. I really don't know what to do." The elf smiled softly. "If the goddess of love doesn't know what to do, what makes you think a clumsy elf like me would know?" Ryuu breathed out. "Besides, I would have thought he'd choose a goddess over a violent elf." Syr giggled. "No, I think he would prefer an innocent elf over an evil goddess." Both girls laughed before Syr let out a deep breath. "I needed that." The elf asked curiously, "Why did you tell me these? Wouldn't this put you at a disadvantage?" The goddess in disguise shook her head. "This is a result of everything I've done. Besides, you're probably the only person I'd feel comfortable telling at this point." Ryuu nodded slowly. "I see." Syr continued. "I promised him I'd show him who I truly am, and to also at least tell you too. No magici, no tricks, no secretis." The elf nodded slowly but didn't respond and let her friend continue. "Ryuu, I can see the souls of mortals." Ryuu blinked in confusion. "Souls?" Syr nodded. "Well, see isn't the exact word, but I can observe them, and in a way discern their emotions and feelings to some extent. That was what drew me to Belle in the first place." The elf nodded. "I see. So you can see everyone's soul in Oreo?" The silver-haired girl nodded. "That's right. And before, Belle's soul is always shown with care and trust towards us. You and I as Syr towards Freya. It's been neutral at worst." Syr looked down, but after what happened, that trust one could always see, it's not there anymore. Even after I told everyone everything. Ryuu considered the idea before she spoke. Maybe he just needs time. The goddess in disguise blinked. "Time?" The elf nodded. "He said he didn't hate you, and I think Belle is just wary of your familia members. He doesn't hold it against you, or at least he's trying not to." Syr hummed. "I suppose that would make sense." Ryuu smiled. "Besides, you're still going on that date with him, no? I think just that is enough to tell you that you still have a chance." The goddess in disguise smiled. "I suppose I do then." She looked at Ryuu. "Thank you, Ryuu. But just so you know, I'm going to try even harder now to get him to accept me again." The elf chuckled. "I'll look forward to it." Syr giggled in response, before she realized something. "Speaking of which, we never did get to decide who was going on that date first." Ryuu nodded. "We didn't." The goddess in disguise folded her arms. "I think you should go first." The elf blinked in surprise. "Me?" Syr nodded. "I can't say for sure, but I think when we're on that date, my familia members might try something that might ruin everything we have in mind." Ryuu looked worried. "Can't you just tell them to stay away? Or even have your captain do something about it?" The waitress snorted. "I could, but I doubt it'd be that simple." "Well, not to say I won't try." The elf sighed. "If you're sure." She smiled at Ryuu. "Think of it this way. I can see what you're doing on your date with Belle, then I can make sure mine goes better. The elf snorted. You're not as good as lying as you think you are, just so you know. Syr laughed softly. Let's agree to disagree then. The goddess in disguise asked again. So you're going first, okay? Ryuu stared at Syr for a second before she nodded. Okay. Syr smiled good. Ryuu asked again. Are you sure about this? Usually you'd be jumping to go first. The silver-haired girl nodded. Yep. Now, let's head back down. We should tell Belle about this too. Freya would never admit it, but at this point, she was honestly afraid of how things would go for her. With that in mind, Syr opened the door and walked out before she glanced back. You coming? Ryuu sighed in exasperation. All right. The elf followed her best friend out, their conversation still fresh on her mind. Line break. Earlier, Belle and Anya were in the courtyard again, and the boy asked, So, what did you want to talk about? The cat person gripped the frills of her uniform. Belnaya, my brother. He was there when you got attacked, wasn't he? Belle blinked before he nodded. He was. Anya didn't meet his eyes. I'm very sorry. The white-haired hero raised an eyebrow. What for? The cat person looked at him. I mean, my brother attacked you. And dash. Belle raised his hand. All right, stop. Anya stopped speaking, and the white-haired boy smiled. Look, what your brother did was his choice, his alone. I'm pissed at them, yes, but it's not your fault. The cat person furrowed her brows. But you got hurt because of my brother Naya. Belle snorted. Hurt? I'm sorry to say this, well, sorry not sorry, but your brother's not the fastest adventurer in Oreo. Anya blinked in confusion, but didn't Syr Naya say dash? The younger adventurer chucked. She said they attacked me. Not that they managed to hurt me. I kicked their asses all the way to Sunday. Anya gaped, and Belle asked, What? Don't believe me? The cat person nodded slightly. I mean my brother. And Syr Naya said, Hey, Dean-sama was involved too. The boy chuckled. If you don't believe me, you can always ask Syr or Horn. Anya breathed out. No, I believe you, Naya. I guess I was worried for nothing. Belle smiled. Well, I wouldn't say nothing. The cat person smiled. So, I have to ask, have you decided yet, Naya? The white-haired human raised an eyebrow. About? Anya glanced at the door behind them. About Syr and Rinaya, of course. Belle smiled in exasperation. I thought we were waiting for us to go on a date first before I needed to give an answer. The cat person's smile widened. I mean, I need to know Naya. The boy sighed with a smile. I have an idea, but I still want to wait until the dates before I give them my answer. It won't be fair to Syr otherwise. Anya's smile fell slightly. I see, Naya. Belle snorted. I think you can guess what my answer is. The cat person nodded, but wasn't sure what to say now that she actually knew. The boy chuckled. Let's leave it at that, okay? Anya let out a breath and nodded. Okay, Naya. Belle smiled. Thank you. Now, you think we should head back to the others? The cat person nodded. Yeah. The pair walked back into the pub, where they found Chloe and Horn finishing with cleaning the dining area. Anya blinked in surprise. Horn-sama, what are you doing? The goddess attendant glanced at her. I'm helping with cleaning up. The cat person nodded, but why Naya? Horn sighed. Because Mamma Mia told me to. And I've worked here before too. Anya nodded slowly. I see. Chloe asked as she placed a chair back in place. Are you two done? Belle nodded. Yeah, we're good. Where are the others? The taller cat person answered. Lunwar went back to her room, and Syr and Ryuu went upstairs to talk. The white-haired adventurer nodded in understanding. I see. And we're done too. The group turned to see Ryuu and Syr walking into the dining area, and Chloe asked, So? Syr smiled. We talked about what we needed to, and we've also decided who should go on that date first. Horn paid attention, and so did the other two girls. Belle asked, So who's going first? Ryuu spoke up, me. Then you'll go with Syr on the next day. Syr smiled, Yep. The boy hummed. All right, we'll go with that then. The goddess in disguise smiled. Good, then I think it's about time I headed back. It's been, well, a long day. Belle nodded. Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow then. Syr's smile widened, and she looked at Horn. Let's go, Horn. The attendant nodded, and the two walked towards the door, but before they left, Horn glanced back. Belle Cranel, I must know. Syr looked at her curiously, but didn't interrupt as she let her attendant speak. Syr-sama, Freya-sama, she gave her answer. Belle quickly understood what she was asking, and he answered. I'm satisfied with her answer, if that's what you want to know. Horn studied the younger boy for a brief second, before she nodded. I see. She lowered her head towards Syr. I apologize for speaking out of line. Syr smiled, and she shook her head. No, that's all right. She glanced at everyone. Good night, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow. With that said, Syr and Horn left the hostess, heading back for Babel. As the door closed behind them, Belle breathed out. All right, time for me to get going too then. The three older women nodded at his words, and Ryuu spoke. Good night, Belle. The boy smiled back. Good night, resent Anya, Chloe. The two cat people waved. Good night. The young hero walked out of the hostess, leaving the three waitresses to close the pub. As he walked, Bell noticed Otter at a distance, and he stopped, staring at the Boaz. The captain of the Freya Familia gave him a brief nod, before disappearing into the shadows. Bell breathed out through his nose, shaking his head slightly before he started walking back towards his own home. XXX. Author note. That's done. The next chapter will be Bell's dates with Ryuu and Syr, which I'm still fleshing out. So it won't be a while before that chapter comes out. Which brings me to the next thing. Should I stick with only Ryuu for the pairing, or include Syr? Even now, I'm extremely torn. So if y'all have any opinions, feel free to leave it in a review. Until next time, fake it till you make it. Chapter 50. Author note. Hey, I'm finally back. It's been a busy 3 months, and I sort of hit a block about how I wanted this chapter to go. But anyways, here we are. I've been dead with work, spending more time with family and friends, not to mention the new Super Robot Wars Gaim, and a bunch of other stuff came up. XXX. With Syr and Horn, the pair quickly reached Freya's room in the Tower of Babel. The two women quickly noticed Otter standing outside the room, and Syr greeted, Otter. The Boaz lowered his head. Welcome back. The goddess in disguise smiled. Have you been waiting here all this while? Otter shook his head. No, I only reached here not long ago. Syr hummed, I see. The Boaz dared himself to ask, how did the conversation go? The goddess in disguise smiled. All things considered, I think it went pretty well. Otter nodded. That is good to hear. Syr nodded. It is. Well, Anya was shaken, but I can't blame her for that. She walked past Otter and opened the door, taking off her hood after she walked in. At least, I think we still have a chance with Bell. The Boaz didn't respond immediately. I assume he has accepted your answer? Syr glanced back at him and smiled. To some extent. He'll need time to process this, and I don't blame him. Her smile dropped slightly. He bears the memories of Heracles and Gilgamesh, and many other heroic spirits. Trust in the gods doesn't come easily from those heroes. The two followers of the goddess didn't answer, and Syr breathed out, Otter, Horn and I shall spend the night here. You can return to the Folkvanger. The Boaz was slightly surprised by her words. As you wish. The goddess in disguise smiled. Thank you. And tell the others I'm fine. Otter lowered his head. Understood. The Boaz turned for the door, closing it quietly behind him. As soon Otter left the room, the goddess approached her bed. Tonight has been eventful. Horn nodded, but didn't comment. Syr smiled. I think I'll spend the night in this form. Maybe even moving forward in private. The attendant asked, wouldn't that be risky? The goddess giggled. It would, but I think Mamma Mia is right, and it's time I started embracing this side of myself. Syr looked at Horn. I hope you'll help me. The attendant fell silent, and Syr spoke up again. I promise you, Horn, I will be no less of a goddess. Horn's eyes widened, and she fell to one knee. I wouldn't dare dash. The goddess smiled as she cut her off. I said it before, didn't I? I want you to be honest. I know how you see me. I've always known. Horn fell silent again, not knowing what to say. Syr sat down on her bed. Mamma Mia's right. Now that we're at this stage, Freya, the cold tyrant goddess everyone's familiar with, that's all just an act. Of course, I am still Freya, and there is some truth to that side of me. But I also want to stop hiding this side of me. She looked at Horn. That's why I want you to help me, Horn. You and I are part of each other. Horn lowered her head further. As you dash. Horn was cut off again as Syr stood up and lifted her head up. Okay, none of that. The attendant's eyes widened as Syr sighed. I want you to do this by your own will, Horn. Not because I ordered you to. I'm asking you. So if you don't want to, I'm okay with it. Horn stared into the goddess' eyes, and she steeled herself, before lowering her head once more. Syr Sama, I promise you, I will do my best to help you. Syr smiled. Thank you, Horn. The goddess turned to her bed again. All right, let's go to bed. We've got a lot ahead of us. Horn nodded, before she joined the goddess in bed. The next day, Bell stood in the kitchen making breakfast. The captain of the Hestia Familia skillfully chopped some onions before tossing them into the pan, before moving to whisk some eggs. As he moved with utmost skill and precision, Lily and Haroheim were watching him from a distance near the door. The Renard smiled dryly. I thought we were supposed to help him with breakfast today. Lily pursed her lips. They had tried to help, but Bell had turned them away and simply continued his work. Yeah, I don't know. The prom had never seen him like this, and it was obvious the young hero had something on his mind. Haroheim tilted her head curiously as they watched him work almost mechanically. I wonder if he has something on his mind. Lily hummed, yet potentially. Bel-sama can be hyper-focused when something is bothering him. The Renard asked, but never to this extent, right? The prom nodded, not even with the Xenos. I guess the only time close is when Ryuu-sama was involved. Haruheim hummed, I wonder if it's trouble with women? Lily snapped her head over to her. Women. The Renard nodded. Yes, well, Bel-sama's still single, isn't he? Wouldn't that be normal? If you're that curious, why not just ask him? Welf's voice reached their ears, and both demi-humans jumped. quickly turning around to see Welf standing at the door. Lily whispered almost loudly, Welf-sama. The only other male in the Hestia familia raised an eyebrow. What? Am I wrong? Welf walked into the kitchen, to the surprise of the two girls, and Haruheim called out, Welf-sama. Her sudden outburst caught Belle's attention, and the white-haired human turned to see the blacksmith. Welf? What's up? The redhead jabbed his thumb at the two behind him. I came over to see if the food was ready. Saw these two at the door watching you. I thought they were supposed to help you with breakfast today. Belle blinked. Oh, I told them I'm fine to do everything alone. Welf nodded. Yeah, well, they think you might have women trouble or something. The white-haired hero blinked again, before he smiled dryly. First Aisha-san, now the two of you. Seriously, do women have a sixth sense or something? Lily gaped. Wait, really? Belle sighed, and he nodded. Yeah. He hesitated for a short moment. Before speaking, I'm taking Ryuu-san and Syr-san on a date for the goddess festival. Welf whistled. Both of them? Damn. I didn't think you had it in you. The boy smiled softly. It was more of them asking me out than me asking them, really. Lily palmed her face. I should have known. And obviously you accepted then, Belle-sama. Belle nodded, before smoothly turning to continue cooking. Yeah, well, Aisha-san said to just go and have fun. But I still want to have a bit of an idea what we'll be doing then. Haruheim blinked. Wait, so Aisha-san already knew? The white-haired hero nodded. Yeah. He paused before he frowned. Speaking of, Ishtar seemed to know too. Lily looked surprised. Ishtar-sama too? Belle sighed. Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to think about it anymore. I'll just go out for a walk to look around the festival area. Well, chuckled. That'd be a good start. The goddess festival is generally the same each year. The only things I'd say would change are the food stalls and what they sell. Lily nodded in agreement. The layout is pretty much the same. Belle nodded. So I've been told. The boy quickly finished plating the food. Oh, and please don't let Hestia-sama or Artemis-sama know, okay? Haruheim asked, why though? Belle paused. Artemis is one thing. Actually, no. It'd be a pain to explain to both of them. Welf breathed out with an exasperated smile. That's what happens when you're their favorite, huh? He nodded. All right, we won't say a thing. Yeah? Lily, Haruheim. The blacksmith looked at the prum pointedly, and she sighed. All right. Lily promises not to tell them. Haruheim smiled. I hope your dates go well, Belle-sama. Belle nodded. I do too. He grinded some salt and pepper over the food, and he looked at the three. Now if we're done talking about my troubles, can we please get the food out? The three shared a smile before they went to help their captain bring the food out. Line break. Later that afternoon, Belle walked along the streets once more, intent on getting a rough idea of the festival area again. The young man's lips thinned when he saw a familiar hooded figure at a distance approaching him, Hildresleaf. Dean breathed out through his nose as he pulled down his hood. Belle Cranel. Belle narrowed his eyes. What do you want? The elf studied the younger human. I bear no ill intentions. I simply wish to talk. The young captain of the Hestia familia raised an eyebrow. Talk. Dean nodded. Correct. Belle breathed out. And why should I hear you out? The elf kept his gaze on the boy firmly. Syr-sama and Freya-sama have both made it clear that you are not to be harmed. I have no reason nor desire to gain the ire of my goddess. The white-haired hero hummed. I see. All right. Dean nodded. Let us bring this to a quieter area. This is not the best place to have a conversation. Belle glanced around, and he could already notice people glancing and staring at them. Whether they were looking more at Dean or himself, he didn't know. The human sighed. Okay, but make it quick. I happen to be quite busy today. The former elf king nodded before he turned. Follow me. Belle thinned his lips before he decided to wordlessly follow the elf. A short walk later, the pair found themselves in a cafe, and Belle couldn't help but notice the cafe was empty. Dean gestured to a table by the window before he wordlessly sat down. In case you're wondering, I have asked the owner to clear out the cafe today for us. Belle hummed as he sat down. I see. Soon, a waiter came by with 2 cups of tea, placing them before Dean and Belle respectively. Dean nodded in acknowledgement before taking a sip from his cup, whilst Belle simply kept his gaze on the elf. The human asked, so, what did you want to talk about? The elf took a brief moment to let the tea go down before he spoke. It's about Syr-sama, or more specifically, your date with her in the next few days. Belle raised an eyebrow. What about it? Dean stared at him. Everything about it. I want to finish what I initially approached you for. The boy sighed. Is that so? The elf nodded. Then let us not waste any time. Belle cut him off as hints of Gilgamesh and Emiy slipped through. I have to ask. Dean raised an eyebrow, but said nothing and waited for the younger human to finish. Belle stared him in the eye. Do you have no pride at all, Dean Sellen? The elf furrowed his brows. Pride, you say? The boy nodded. That's right. Pride. You know how Syr, how Freya feels about me. Why are you going out of your way to do this? Dean narrowed his eyes. I don't believe I have to explain. Syr-sama, Freya-sama. She is the center of the world. Belle breathed out. And you, Otter-san, and every single member of the Freya Familia, all love her. You all crave her attention, her love. The elf didn't like where this was going. What are you implying? The boy leaned back into his seat. Your goddess wants me to be her otter. Does that not bother you? Hayden breathed out. It matters not what I think. This is her decision. If you are her otter, then that is all there is. Belle narrowed his eyes. Is that so? I guess I shouldn't have expected much from someone like you. The elf scowled. And what do you know about me? The boy stared back firmly. I know enough. Belle stood up. This is a waste of time. If that was all you wanted, I'll be leaving then. Hayden glared at him. Sit down. We are not done. The boy snorted. We are. If I were you, I'd rather worry more about myself than someone who's going on a date with his favorite goddess. The elf saw red, and he lashed out, only to suddenly find himself unable to move, chains wrapped around his arms and waist, all connected to golden portals around him. Belle breathed out. Load, Gilgamesh. Hayden struggled against his bindings, and Belle spoke. Besides, I'd rather not take advice from a sorry excuse of a king who let his country be destroyed. The boy walked towards the door, before sparing the elf one last glance. If you really want to help, then at least make sure no one from your familia follows us on our date. And don't forget about my promise. With that said, Belle walked out, leaving Hayden hanging at the cafe before the chains eventually disappeared. Line break. Some days later, Belle stood in front of the hostess dressed in a dark blue button-up shirt and white pants. The boy breathed. All right. He walked into the establishment, quickly noticing Lenoir, Anya, and Chloe cleaning up. Anya grinned. Belle Naya. Here for Rianaya? Belle nodded. Yeah. Mia walked out of the kitchen with a basket of vegetables. She's upstairs with Syr. When you go, let them know. She directed the last part to the three waitresses, and Lenoir nodded. All right. The dwarf spared the boy another glance. Have fun. With that said, Mia walked back into the kitchen, and Belle just smiled softly. Thanks. As soon as the dwarf left, Anya got into Belle's face. So, Belle Naya, what be Naya planned? Chloe grinned. Oh, this I want to know. The boy chuckled. Unfortunately, that's a secret. You can ask them when we're done. The taller cat person raised an amused eyebrow. Is that how it is now, Naya? Belle nodded. That it is Naya. Both cat people pouted/glared at him lightly at his response, earning a laugh from the boy, and they continued to bug him for details. Earlier that day, Ryuu and Syr were in the elf's room, testing out various outfits. The elf's face flushed slightly as she wore a revealing outfit. Syr, are you sure we should be doing this now? Syr smiled. Don't worry, Belle-san's supposed to come in an hour, so we have plenty of time. Plus, I already have an idea on what outfit you should wear. Ryuu furrowed her brows. Then why are we trying on more? The goddess in disguise giggled. It never hurts to try more. You never know if you'll find a better fit. The elf sighed in resignation as Syr chose another set. All right. As Ryuu put on the next set, this time a more modest outfit with a turtleneck, the elf asked, Are you sure you're okay with helping me? Syr smiled as she watched the elf get dressed. I'm sure. I love Belle, but you're also very important to me. That's why I also want to make sure your date goes as well as it can. Ryuu fell silent before she nodded. Thank you, Syr. The silver-haired girl's smile widened. Don't thank me yet. I might take him away from you tomorrow with a better outfit. The elf chuckled. Maybe, but I doubt Belle would let clothing be the deciding factor. Syr giggled. You're right, he wouldn't. After a short moment, Ryuu settled for a modest white summer dress. The goddess in disguise raised an impressed eyebrow. Oh, a bit simple, but I suppose it fits you more than anything, Ryuu. The elf nodded. This feels more comfortable anyway. Before they could continue, they heard a knock on the door, and Lenoir's voice reached their ears. Belle's here. Syr yelled back. Thank you. We'll be out in a sec. The silver-haired girl smiled at Ryuu. All right, time's up. Go have fun. Ryuu smiled back. Thank you. It won't be long before it's your turn. Syr snorted. Trying to make me jealous now, are we? The elf laughed softly as they approached the door. I would never. The goddess in disguise opened the door to see Lenoir there, and the former assassin pointed downstairs. He's downstairs waiting. Ryuu nodded. Thank you. I'll see you later then. Lenoir nodded as she watched the elf walk down, the pair standing outside of Ryuu's room. The brunette looked at her friend. Not going down? Syr smiled. No, today is Ryuu's day. I don't want to ruin it for her. Lenoir hummed. I guess that's true. The silver-haired girl's smile widened. Besides, if I go down, I'll definitely want to go peek on them. The former assassin rubbed her temples, right? She sighed. At least you have enough control to not actually do it. Syr giggled. Oh, don't remind me. I was so tempted to ask Hogni to spy on them for me. Lenoir palmed her face, reminding herself that Syr was also Freya. Of course you would be. The brunette shook her head. You know what, whatever. I'll go down, and I'll let you know once they're gone. Syr smiled. Thank you, Lenoir. Line break. A short moment later, Belle and Ryuu were walking along the streets of Oreo. The elf glanced at Belle, who was walking by her side, and Belle quickly noticed her looking at him. Is there something wrong, Ryu-san? Ryu's face heated up slightly, and she shook her head. And no, I was just wondering what we had planned for the day. Belle smiled. Well, I was thinking of exploring the goddess festival a bit. You've been there before, right? The elf nodded. Only once or twice, though. Most of the time I'm working at the hostess throughout the festival. The boy nodded. Then it's settled. Once we're done exploring the festival, depending on the time, we can have dinner. Ryu nodded. Sounds good. Belle smiled. Speaking of, it's really refreshing to see you outside of your uniform or your adventure gear. The elf's face heated up. WL. The boy chuckled. It looks very good on you. I actually like this more. Ryu's face reddened more, and she stuttered. Thank you. She didn't meet his gaze. Why, you look good too. Belle smiled. Thank you. The two soon reached the area where the festival was held, and Belle noticed Freya sitting on the pillar at a distance. The goddess noticed him and gave him a brief nod, and Belle just waved back. Ryu commented, That's Horn, right? Belle nodded. Most likely. Syr-san was with you at the hostess, right? The elf nodded. Yeah. The boy hummed. They'll have to stay up there for a solid few days. I know Syr and Horn can rotate, but the other goddesses. Ryu smiled dryly. I wouldn't worry so much. I'd expect the goddesses to be taken care of whilst they're up there. Belle chuckled. Oh, definitely. They won't stay quiet if they don't like it. The elf smiled in agreement as she noticed Demeter at a distance, along with the other pillars where the goddesses sat. Definitely. The white-hair boy gave Freya one last look before he turned. Come on, let's see what they have in the festival. Ryu nodded, and as they walked, Belle called out, Ryu-san. The elf blinked as she turned to him, only to blink again when she saw his extended hand. Huh. Belle smiled. Your hand. Ryu blinked again, only to realize what he wanted. Oh. Her face reddened deeply, and the boy asked, Or do you not feel comfortable, Dash? The elf blurted out, No. Belle blinked in surprise at her outburst, which only served to deepen Ryu's blush. The elf looked down, not daring to meet his gaze. Sure. She shyly reached out, but Belle simply chuckled and gently held her hand before they headed into the festival area. A short while later, as Belle and Ryu wandered around the festival, the pair spotted a few familiar faces from the Loki Familia. Riveria raised an eyebrow when she saw the pair. Oh. Ryu's eyes widened in surprise, before panicking slightly when she also saw Lafia and Alicia with the High Elf. Belle smiled, still holding Ryu's hand. Riveria-san, Lafia-san, Alicia-san. Lafia gaped. Belle Cranel. And wait, aren't you that waitress? Alicia simply stared neutrally. Hello, Belle Cranel. Ryu stuttered slightly. Riveria-sama. Riveria smiled. I hope we're not interrupting your date. Lafia gaped. Did that? Belle chuckled as he quickly noticed Ryu's reddening face. Not at all. We were just wandering around the festival. The waitress nodded slightly. Why, yes, that's right. The High Elf looked at Ryu. I'd say I didn't expect you two to be on a date, but I can't say I didn't see it coming. The younger elf's face reddened. It's Belle's first time visiting the festival, so Alicia hummed. You've never been to one before, Belle? The white-haired human nodded. Yeah, I've only been in Oreo for a few months, after all. Riveria studied Ryu for a brief moment, who didn't dare meet her gaze, whether from the fact that they were found during their date or something else. The High Elf didn't know. Belle noticed the bag Lafia and Alicia carried in their hands. Are you three out to get food and supplies? Alicia nodded. That's right. The festival has some vendors that sell fresh food and groceries of good quality. Lafia nodded in agreement. And they're a lot cheaper than the usual prices. The captain of the Hestia Familia nodded in understanding. I see. He looked at Ryu. Shouldn't Mamma Mia make use of this time of the year? The elf smiled softly. She does, but we know pretty much most of the vendors, so they send us supplies at a discounted rate already. Besides, some, if not most of the better prices in the festival are for adventurers or exploration familias only. Belle owed an understanding, I see. Riveria nodded. The festival runs for another 2 days, so you can take your time to look around. The executive of the Loki Familia added. I doubt your supporter would let go of a chance like this, though. Belle chuckled. True, Lily would probably be 2 or 3 steps ahead of me by now. The High Elf smiled. I suppose we shouldn't intrude on your time any longer. Lafia blinked, but dash. Alicia cut her off. Lafia, we're still getting our groceries. The youngest elf looked at the older elf, and she sighed. Okay. Riveria hid a smile, and she looked at Belle and Ryu. Enjoy the rest of your day. Belle nodded. Thank you, you two. Ryu nodded slightly. Thank you, Riveria-sama. The group of 3 walked away, leaving Belle and Ryu to continue their date. Shortly after they parted ways, Riveria quickly noticed 2 familiar figures at a short distance, not so discreetly making their way through the streets. It didn't take much for the High Elf to put 2 and 2 together, and she decided to approach the 2 goddesses, Lady Hestia, Lady Artemis. The two goddesses almost jumped when the woman's voice reached their ears. Artemis was the first to react. Why, you're Loki's kids? Hestia got out of her surprise. What do you want? Lafia and Alicia shared a look, and Riveria smiled slightly. Nothing, I just thought I would come say hello. The two goddesses blinked. Oh. The high elf chuckled. I hope we're not interrupting something. The two goddesses froze when they saw the knowing look on Riveria's face, and Artemis spoke awkwardly. And no, not at all. Hestia nodded frantically. Definitely not. Riveria hummed. I see. Well, I suppose I won't take up any more of your time, if you'll excuse us. With that said, Riveria gave the two goddesses another nod, before leaving with Lafia and Alicia. The youngest elf looked confused. What was that about? Alicia sighed. Don't worry about it. Riveria chuckled. Nothing we need to worry about, Lafia. The high elf glanced back to see Hestia and Artemis frantically looking around for Belle and Ryuu, before they disappeared into the crowd. Belle and Ryuu ended up spending most of the afternoon exploring the majority of the goddess festival. Belle looked around as they slowly walked. I know it's meant to celebrate the goddesses representing fertility and harvest, but it's all mostly food products, huh? Ryuu smiled dryly at his comments. Well, that is the point of this festival. The elf added. Besides, I quite like that the guild is sponsoring adventurers to exchange food products with those vouchers. Belle nodded. Yeah, those buns are quite good. The pair continued walking, until Belle paused and glanced back. Ryuu quickly noticed his pause. Is there something wrong, Belle? The boy scanned the area with his eyes, before he let out a breath. No, it's nothing. Belle turned. Come on, we still have a few places left. Then we can get dinner. The elf studied his face for a brief moment before she nodded. Okay. With that said, the pair continued their date, spending the rest of the afternoon browsing the festival. Line break. In the evening, Belle and Ryuu found themselves at a restaurant, one fancier than the pubs and bars that adventurers would frequent. Ryuu smiled at the white-haired adventurer dryly. If I knew we were coming to a place like this, I would have worn something more presentable. Belle chuckled. Never thought I'd hear that from you of all people. The elf snorted. Please, I may not care much of how people see me, but I do understand the need to dress according to the venue. The white-haired hero smiled. The waiters didn't seem to mind. Ryuu sighed. Because they know who you are? Trust me, if they didn't, or if you weren't as well known as you are, they wouldn't act the way they did. Belle hummed. I guess it's a good thing they know who I am then. The elf sighed and nodded. I suppose it is. Soon, a waiter came over with their food, a simple bowl of stir-fried glass noodles for Ryuu and a steak for Belle. As they ate, Ryuu looked at Belle, and she thought about their date throughout the day. Not to mention, her conversation with Belle at his familia home and what happened with Syr and Freya. With that on her mind, the elf stopped eating, deep in thought, and Belle quickly noticed her spacing off. Ryuu-san, is something wrong? That tore her from her musings, and the elf pursed her lips. Belle, can you answer me honestly? Belle raised an eyebrow. Yeah? What's up? Ryuu looked at her food. Are you still mad at Syr? The boy paused, and he sighed. No, I'm not. The elf furrowed her brows. But you don't trust her anymore, or at least, not as much as you used to. Belle leaned back into his seat. I don't know. Ryuu nodded. I see. She looked at him again. Tomorrow, can you at least give her a chance? A real chance, if only to talk to her. Belle stared her in the eyes, and he chuckled. We're on a date, but you're still worried about Syr. The elf pursed her lips. I just want to make sure it's fair. The boy chuckled again. You're confident, I see. Ryuu sighed. After everything that happened? I don't have much, if any experience, but I'm not dumb, Belle. The elf looked down. Promise me, please. The young man just nodded. All right. Their dinner ended shortly, and Belle and Ryuu walked along the streets. As they headed back for the hostess, Belle spoke. Tomorrow. Ryuu looked at him curiously. Tomorrow? The boy nodded. Once the date with Syr is over, I'll give you my answer. I promise that I'll give Syr a chance, so. The elf simply gave him a nod. Okay. Soon, they reached the hostess, and Belle spoke. Okay, I suppose that's it for today. Ryuu glanced at him. Aren't you coming in? The boy snorted. And risk Chloe and Anya drilling me about her date? The elf chuckled. Well, they'll be drilling me anyways, might as well. Belle smiled and shook his head. No, I don't think I will. Ryuu snorted. It was worth a try. The boy turned. I'll see you tomorrow then. The elf nodded. You will. Good night, Belle. Belle waved good night. As Ryuu reached for the door, she let out a short breath, steeling herself before she opened the door. Line break. The next day, Belle walked out of the hostess with Syr. The goddess glanced at the white-haired human. So, what do we plan today? Belle answered. I have two options for you. Syr raised an eyebrow. Options? The boy nodded. I already brought Ryuu-san to the goddess festival, but I doubt you'd want to do that. The goddess smiled coyly. I suppose not. Belle nodded. So I was thinking we should go outside or Rio. Syr blinked. Outside. The white-haired human nodded, and he glanced around. I'd rather not have so many eyes on us while we're out, no? Belle could already spot a few people around him wearing the Freya Familia uniform. Your friends are not as stealthy as they think. Syr blinked, and she glanced around. I guess you're not wrong. I'll have to do something about this later. A grin appeared on her face. All right, let's get out of here then. Belle smiled softly, low Gilgamesh. In a few seconds, Belle summoned a Vimana with 2 seats to Syr's surprise. Getting onto the flying chariot, the young hero turned and offered his hand. Come on. The silver-haired girl excitedly got on, knowing full well her Familia members were about to lose their shit. Thank you. As soon as they were both on the chariot, the Vimana started to float upwards, and Belle led Syr to sit down. The moment they started to ascend into the air, the pair started hearing surprised voices, and some more panicked than others. Syr smiled impishly as she glanced down, quickly noticing her Familia members scrambling around. The goddess noted a few faces, and she made a mental note to have a chat with them when they were done. Belle looked at Syr as he sat down. Ready? The goddess nodded. Of course. The boy nodded and willed the aircraft to speed away from Rio. As they soared through the skies, Syr asked, So where are we headed? Belle hummed. Well, I have a few places in mind, but unfortunately, I've only ever lived in my village for most of my life. The girl grinned. I think I want to see your village. The boy raised an eyebrow. But there's nothing there. Syr giggled. But I want to go. Belle paused, considering the idea. Before he shook his head, I don't think that a good idea. The goddess raised an eyebrow. Why not? The boy sighed. There's nothing dash. Syr cut him off. Probably nothing to you, but I've never been there, so it'll be something new for me. Belle looked at her, and he sighed. All right. Syr smiled good. The boy slowed down the Vimana, taking a short moment to look at where Rio was, and where they were in general. Okay, normally it'd take a few weeks' time on foot, but I think we can get there in an hour if I use the Vimana's maximum speed. Syr nodded, sure. Belle looked at the goddess. Make sure you're seated properly, okay? The Vimana has magic to keep us on board, but if you move around dash. Syr cut him off, a slightly annoyed but amused expression on her face. I know what a Vimana is. It might not be from my pantheon, but I know enough. The boy chuckled softly. All right, here we go then. With a thought, the Vimana vanished in a blur of gold, leaving the proximity of Rio in minutes. Line break. Shortly after, Belle and Syr arrived at a remote area near the mountains, and they quickly noticed a small village coming into view. Syr asked with interest as the Vimana started slowing down. Is that it? The white-haired hero nodded. It is. I hope my house is still there. The goddess smiled. So I get to see your child at home first. Belle grimaced. Yeah, don't expect too much. The Vimana landed a short distance from the entrance of the village, and Belle got off, before helping Syr get off. Belle turned towards the village, and he sighed to himself. I'm gonna regret this. Syr giggled. It won't be that bad. It looks like a pretty nice village. The boy just shook his head. All right, come on. We'll go to Melon after this. The goddess just laughed softly. Okay. The pair walked into the village, and Belle quickly spotted a familiar face. A middle-aged man with some leather armor. The man's eyes lit up with recognition. Holy, Belle. Belle smiled. Tyler, it's been a while. Tyler smiled. Not long enough. What are you doing here? I thought you went to Rio. He quickly noticed Syr with him, and the girl took the chance to speak up. Mind introducing us, Belle? Belle glanced back at the goddess before he gestured to Tyler. This is Tyler. He's one of the hunters in this village. He gathers food and protects our village. He then gestured to Syr, and this is Syr. She's one of my friends from Rio. The gray-haired girl raised an eyebrow. Just a friend. Belle simply put on a smile for now. Tyler folded his arms, a knowing grin finding its way onto his face. So she's your missus then? Syr giggled. I hope so. Belle sighed. You know what? I give up. Let's just leave it at that. The hunter chuckled, understanding that Belle didn't want to go any further. All right. The man asked, So what brings you two here? Can't imagine you're here to sightsee. The adventurer nodded. We are. Syr wanted to visit the village, so I brought her here. Tyler raised an eyebrow. But there's literally nothing out here. Belle nodded. That's what I said. Syr smiled. Well, it is Belsan's home, where he grew up. Of course I'd be curious. The hunter hummed. Well, take your time then. The girl gained an impish look. Speaking of any stories about Belle when he was a kid, Tyler's eyes lit up, but a look from Belle stopped him. Unfortunately, I don't have any. Syr hummed. Really? That's too bad. The man chuckled. But if you find some of the women around here, you might get some interesting stories. Belle sighed. Tyler. Tyler snorted. What? You finally brought a girlfriend back. And with how you were as a kid, we would have sworn you would have tried to date an elf. Syr's smile widened. An elf? So it's true that Belsan has a thing for elves then? The boy tried to speak up. That's Dash. Tyler laughed. Oh, definitely. His grandfather would try to convince him to build a harem and teach him about women. But I suppose the only thing that stuck was elves. Belle's face reddened slightly. Tyler. Syr giggled. So, I guess Ryu really has the advantage then. Tyler raised an eyebrow. Ryu? The girl grinned and started, only for Belle to cut them off. All right, let's leave it at that. Okay. The girl and the older man shared a look before they laughed, and Tyler spoke, all right. We'll stop. Belle sighed and looked around. So how's everyone? Tyler followed his gaze. Same old. Not much happens around here, you know? Can't complain though. The boy nodded. Is my house still the same as I left it? The man nodded. Exactly as it is. We take turns cleaning it, as your Gramps asked us to, but we left most of the stuff as it is. Belle nodded. I see, thank you. Tyler smiled. Go take a look. I'll let the others know you're back. The boy nodded. Thank you. The hunter jogged off, leaving Belle and Syr alone. The boy let out a breath. Come on, my house is this way. Syr smiled. Now I'm excited. Belle just shook his head with an exasperated smile, and the two made their way to one of the houses at a distance a bit further away from the village center. Soon, they were met with a moderate-sized house, and Belle smiled in nostalgia. It's only been a few months, but it feels like it's been ages. Syr smiled. Well, a lot has happened in the short time you were away. Belle nodded. Let's go in. He pushed the door open, revealing a simple home with chairs, a sofa, a coffee table, and a few large bookshelves. Belle took a deep breath. I'm home. Syr smiled, feeling the need to speak. Welcome home, Belle. The boy gave her a soft smile before he walked around. He wasn't lying. They left everything as I had left them. Belle slowly walked over to the bookshelves, picking up one of them, and gave it a quick flip. Syr raised an eyebrow at the bookshelves. I never would have thought you'd like to read. The boy chuckled. These are all the heroic stories my grandfather would read for me. Since he left, I learned how to read them on my own. There's a lot I still don't understand, but I've listened to my grandfather so many times I can understand them just fine. The goddess nodded before she asked, May I have a look at them? Belle nodded. Of course. Syr smiled and picked one up before her eyes widened when she read the title. The Volsunga Saga. The goddess gave it a quick flip, and she couldn't believe how detailed the story was. How? Belle smiled. Ah, that's a story from your pantheon, isn't it? Syr nodded. It's not directly related to me, but I am familiar with it. Belle nodded. My grandfather wrote a lot on it, but he mainly focused on the story of Sigurd. The goddess nodded in understanding, before putting the book back onto the shelf as she looked through the other books. I see. And you say he wrote them? Belle nodded as he absent-mindedly flipped through a few other books. He did. He would always read them to me when he was still with me. The boy picked up a book. Come to think of it, the first ones he read to me were about Heracles, and they're the ones I love the most. Syr noted that there were a lot of Greek stories, more so than the others. Do you know how he found material? The boy shrugged. Honestly, I've got no clue. He just knew. The goddess grew suspicious, but she simply nodded. I see. Belle looked at his books before he smiled. You know what? Since I'm here, I might as well bring them with me. I did promise I'd bring them back for Harrowheim. Syr smiled slyly. We're on a date, and you're thinking of another woman? The white-haired boy breathed out. I'm not even going to answer that question. The goddess pouted slightly. You meant to at least give me a reaction. Belle just chuckled as he started gathering his books. I don't think I will. Syr just folded her arms. Spoil sport. The boy laughed softly as he worked. How about I make it up to you by making lunch? The goddess snorted. Fine, but don't expect to be able to blackmail me with your cooking every time. Belle just chuckled as he gathered all of his books. Load, Gilgamesh. The boy stored the books in his treasury before releasing his hold on Gilgamesh's powers. All right, that's done. Syr smiled. You really love your hero stories, don't you? Belle snorted with a smile. Of course I do. They've helped me reach where I am. The goddess simply smiled, her gaze lingering on the bookshelves for a moment. Hey, Belle. The boy glanced back at the girl. Yeah. Syr asked, What's your grandfather's name? If you don't mind me asking. Belle paused. I actually don't know. I've always called him Gramps my entire life. The goddess nodded. I see. Syr made a mental note to find out who his grandfather was, but before she could ponder more on the subject, Belle spoke up. Speaking of, I wanted to ask. The girl looked at him curiously about. The boy put another book into his treasury before he looked at her. Why me? Syr blinked in confusion. What do you mean? Belle looked back at his shelves. I saw a lot through Ottersan and your familia members. You've been, I guess the word is interested, in me since the day I arrived at Orio. The goddess didn't respond, and the boy continued. You've never met me before, and you couldn't have known I was the heir to the throne of heroes. But you've been involved in my life a lot, not just as Syr, but even as Freya. Belle turned to her again, that time with the silverback during Monsterphilia, then the time Ottersan trained the Minotaur to help me level up, and the times with the Ishtar Familia and the Apollo Familia. Why do so much for someone you've only known for mere days? Syr breathed out. Do you know I can see the souls of mortals? The boy nodded. Yes. The goddess explained. I spent a lot of time in the Tower of Babel, mostly to keep an eye on the city. Belle simply nodded as he listened to the girl. When I'm up there, I see everyone's souls. Everyone in Oreo. Syr smiled at him. Your soul was what drew me to you. Your soul was always so pure, so untainted, even when you have so many heroic spirits in you. Then I met you as Syr. I got to know you, and I realized I wanted you to be my odd. Bell nodded. I see. So my soul, that's the reason. Syr nodded. It is a part of it, but not just the only reason. It's because you are you. The white-haired human nodded. I see. The goddess pouted. I see. After all that, that's all you have to say? Bell scratched his head. Look, Dash. Syr cut him off, a sad smile on her face. I get it, Bell. The boy looked confused. Huh? The goddess looked away. I'm the goddess of love, I know. As of now, no matter what I say to you, you've already made up your mind. Bell fell silent. I'm sorry. I know I promised to give you a chance, but Dash. Syr snorted, but nothing. I had my chance. I've had it since I first saw you, and this is the result. That's all there is to it. The goddess gained a small smile. Besides, I'm immortal. I can be very patient if I want to. If I can't have you now, I'll just have to wait until you're tired of Ryuu or reincarnate. Bell breathed out softly. You'll be waiting for a while, though. Syr chuckled. I can be very patient if I want to. I've waited for a very long time for you to show up, but now, I just have to wait for you to fall in love with me. The boy smiled. You know, that sounds creepy when you put it that way. The goddess snorted. Well, get used to it. I love Ryuu very much, but that doesn't mean I'm giving up on you. Bell simply shook his head in exasperation. But before they could continue, they heard a knock on the door. Bell, dear, I heard you're home. The voice of a woman reached their ears, and Bell smiled as he yelled back, Yes. Come in. The door opened, revealing a middle-aged lady wearing an apron. Bell. Welcome back. Bell laughed softly as he gave the woman a hug. Malda-san. Syr watched in curiosity as Bell parted from the hug. This Malda, she used to take care of me. Malda laughed slightly. And I still would be if you hadn't left for Oreo. She looked at Syr. So this must be your girlfriend. Syr smiled. I'm Syr. It's nice to meet someone who knew Bell before he became an adventurer. Malda smiled. You have to tell me how he's doing. The goddess replied with an impish grin. Only if you tell me stories about Bell when he was a child. Bell sighed. Look, we don't dash. Malda gave him a look. Shush you. The ladies are talking. How about you go look for Tyler? He said he was going to gather the others. Bell furrowed his brows. I dash. Syr cut in. I think that's a great idea. I want to chat with Malda-san more, so you can catch up with everyone else. The older woman nodded. Exactly, she gets it. Now, get out. The boy massaged his temples, and he sighed. Kicked out of my own house. Bell shook his head. All right, fine. But we're not staying long. With that said, Bell walked out of his house, leaving Syr and Malda in the house. A short moment after Bell left the door shut, Syr smiled. So, Malda-san dash. The woman cut her off. That boy. He hasn't sent a single letter to us since he left for Oreo. Not once. The goddess paused, letting the woman speak, and Malda looked at her. Imagine our surprise when a young boy who always dreamed of becoming a hero suddenly comes back, not even a few months after leaving the village with a girl like you. Syr smiled. Well, Bell-san is an amazing person. Malda snorted. Please. I care for the boy like I would my own son since his grandfather passed. I know what kind of person he is. So either you're leading him on, or you've got something planned. The goddess' smile fell slightly, noting the lie about Bell's grandfather. You underestimate him, you know? Bell is one of the stronger, if not one of the strongest adventurers in Oreo now. He's capable of fighting top-tier adventurers from Orario's strongest familius on even grounds. Syr took a short breath, but that's not what you want to hear. She looked at the woman seriously. I love him dearly. There's not a single thing I wouldn't do for him. Malda tried to study the girl before she sighed. I guess that's as good as I can get. Syr smiled before she asked. Speaking of, Bell-san said he used to live with his grandfather, but he never knew what his name was. The woman subtly tensed. Really? The girl nodded. He also showed me his books that his grandfather wrote for him. Bell's grandfather must be an impressive writer if he wrote all of these books. Malda nodded. He was. Syr asked, what was his name? It's sad that Bell-san's never known his grandfather's actual name. The woman almost hesitated. His name is Zane. His name was Zane. The goddess immediately detected the lie, and she hid a frown. I see. I'm sure Bell would be happy to know his grandfather's name. Malda smiled. I'm sure he will. Syr snorted. If that is his real name. The woman furrowed her brows. What do you mean? The goddess looked around the house. Is Bell's grandfather a god? Malda's eyes widened. What? A god? That's ridiculous. Bell and Zane are fully human. Syr noticed the lie again. So he is a god. You stuttered when you told me his name. The goddess glanced around, her eyes lingering on the shelf. You know, Bell's collection had a lot of stories from a specific pantheon. The woman looked confused. Pantheon? Syr asked, was Bell's grandfather's name Zeus? Malda froze. I don't know what you're talking about. The girl smiled softly. So it is Zeus. The woman glared at Syr. You're not just some normal girl, are you? Syr sighed. I'm very sorry, I really am. But Bell means a lot to me, and he received a power only a god can give him. Not a normal fauna, but something more. I wanted to know who it was, and if he was in any form of danger. Malda took a deep breath. Who are you? The goddess glanced at the woman. Don't worry. You're a very important person to Bell. I wouldn't even think of harming anyone in this village. That is, unless you, any of you, intend to harm him. Syr turned away. But to answer your question, I am a goddess. The very same goddess that drove Bell's grandfather out of Oreo. Malda's eyes widened. You're Freya? The goddess nodded, letting out a heavy sigh. I guess I've heard him even more than I actually thought. The woman gripped the edges of her dress. What do you want with him? Syr glanced back at her before she looked out of the window. I want to be with him. That's all. She snorted, but I guess I won't have that. His heart is with my best friend. The goddess shook her head. Let's stop there. I'm supposed to be on a date with him, but here I'm having a serious discussion with you. Malda gaped. A date? The two of you came all the way out here for a date. Syr giggled. I told you. Bell's an amazing person. He covered the distance in roughly an hour, so we'll probably leave in the evening. The goddess walked towards the door. If that is all you had to say, I'd like to go find my date. Malda thinned her lips. It's not like I can do anything even if I wanted to. Syr smiled. Again, you're someone important to him. I won't harm any of you. With that said, the silver-haired girl walked out of the house, leaving Malda alone for a brief moment before she too left the house. Line break. Later that evening after dinner, Bell and Syr were back on the Vimana, almost back to Oreo. As the Tower of Babel came into view, Syr sighed. I wish today didn't have to end. Bell spoke up. I'm sorry, we ended up spending the entire day in the village. Syr smiled. Don't be. I actually enjoyed it a lot. Everyone was nice. It's a good change of pace. The boy sighed, but not the best way to spend our time on a date. The goddess raised an amused eyebrow. I didn't mind it. So let's leave it at that, okay? She paused before she gained a small, mischievous smile. But I guess since this will be our first and last day for a while, maybe something special would have been nice. Bell considered the thought, and Syr laughed softly at his reaction. It's fine. Let's go back and let Ryuu know your decision. The white-haired hero looked at the goddess for a brief moment before he nodded. All right. A short moment later, Bell and Syr were back at the hostess, and they were met with Mia at the door. The dwarf had an amused smile on her face. Great job pissing off the other brats. Well done. As soon as those words left her mouth, Bell found them surrounded by a considerable number of Freya familia members. The white-haired hero glanced around before spotting the executives of the Freya familia at a distance, and he saw Otter approaching them. The Boaz stared at Bell, and he stared back. Mia snorted. I told you the goddess would be safe. All of you had nothing to worry about. Hey, Dean breathed out. We had to be sure. Syr smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We will be having words about this, just so we are clear. Some of the members stiffened at her tone and expression, but the executive members merely resigned themselves to their fate. Mia glared at all of them. All right, now get your asses out of here. We might have closed early for the day, but I don't need you brats hanging around outside. The executive members all decided not to risk angering their goddess any further and chose to leave, and Hayden glanced at the remaining lower-level members. Head back. We're done here. The elf spared Bell a glance before he turned and left the area. Soon, the front of hostess was empty, and Bell looked at Mia. Were they waiting here the entire time? The dwarf snorted. They were hanging around. I think some of them wanted to chase after you. Syr smiled calmly. Would you happen to know who they are? Mia chuckled. Unfortunately, I don't care that much to find out. She turned to the door. Come on in. That idiot elf is waiting. The younger pair shared a look, and they followed Mia into the bar. As soon as they walked in, they saw Ryuu sitting at the counter, waiting for them. The elf smiled when she saw her two favorite people. Welcome back. Syr smiled. We're back. Ryuu asked, so how did it go? Bell opened his mouth to answer, but the goddess beat him to it. It was great. We visited Bell's village. The elf blinked in surprise. Your village? The boy nodded. Where I grew up. We left Oreo to avoid her familia members, and we ended up visiting my home village. Ryuu smiled. I see. The trio heard the door lock, and they turned to see Mia locking the front door. The dwarf looked at Bell. So, I assume you want some privacy? The white-haired human nodded. Thank you. Mia nodded. I've told the others to stay in their rooms. I'll be in mine too. The bar in the courtyard is yours. She felt the need to add, just try not to be too loud or damage anything. With that said, Mia went to her room, leaving the three in the bar. The three fell into a silence before Syr spoke up. So Dash. Ryuu cut her off. Bell, before you say anything, I've been thinking about it the entire day. Bell blinked. About? The elf's ears reddened. Well, Syr and I both, we yell like you. Syr raised an eyebrow. I thought we already established that. Ryuu nodded, her face reddening now. Well, I know it was a joke before, but what if you didn't have to choose? The two fell silent, both equally dumbstruck by her words, and Syr felt a mischievous smile appearing on her face. Ryuu, you naughty elf. Ryuu blushed heavily. I mean, we mentioned it before, and I don't want Belle to have to choose. She didn't meet their eyes. If it's Syr, only Syr, I wouldn't mind. Belle furrowed his brows, but dash. Syr cut him off with a smile. I don't mind either, just so you know. I'm sure there's been heroes with harems, or at least consorts. The boy frowned. But that wouldn't be fair to either of you. Ryuu shook her head, her face still red from embarrassment. I don't think it's unfair. Syr nodded. Well, I think Ryuu thinks it's unfair if you choose. Right? The elf nodded. Yes. The goddess added, it's up to you, Belle. This is our third option, and I said it before, I don't mind waiting until you reincarnate anyway. Ryuu looked at Belle, but didn't quite meet his eyes. Belle. The boy sighed. I don't think it's right. Syr didn't respond, but Ryuu spoke up again. I know you want to do it right, but it's also for me. Syr is probably okay with it, but I don't want this to ruin what we already had before. Belle rubbed his temples. I see. He sighed. If you're sure. The elf nodded. I'm sure. Syr smiled. Belle nodded. Fine, we'll give it a go. Our third option. Ryuu felt a smile creeping on her face. Thank you, Belle. The boy just shook his head in exasperation, but didn't know how to respond. Syr smiled, deciding it was probably a good idea not to bring Horn's name into this conversation. Then let's make it official. Belle is now my otter, and he's also Ryuu's partner for life. Ryuu spluttered. Life? Belle also looked slightly surprised at her words. Huh. Syr raised an eyebrow. What? Wasn't that the plan? I'm not stopping at just boyfriend-girlfriend, just so you know. I'm locking it in. The white-haired human felt like his hair was going to turn even whiter. I don't even want to know anymore. The goddess giggled. All right now, I have a lot to talk to Ryuu about, so we'll see you tomorrow then. Belle blinked. Syr raised an eyebrow. What? The day's over, and I doubt Ryuu's ready to share a bed with you at this stage. The elf's face exploded in crimson. SSYR. The goddess giggled. So we're heading to Ryuu's room to have some girlfriend talk. Belle sighed and nodded. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow then. He turned to the door. Good night then. But before he could leave, he felt Syr holding on to his hand. Yeah. Before he could react, Syr kissed him on the cheek. Good night. The boy's face reddened slightly, and so did Ryuu's. Syr looked at Ryuu. Your turn. The elf's face turned a bright shade of red again. Me? The goddess giggled. I'm just joking. You can take it your own pace, but I just wanted to. Belle took a deep breath. I'm going home then. The two girls nodded, and the boy left the hostess with one thought in mind. I need a drink. Author note. Done. So that's the chapter. We now have Syr, Belle, and Ryuu in a three-way relationship, not including Horn for now. We'll be finalizing this arc the next chapter, then probably be entering the school district arc and my take on the final arc. Chapter 51. The next morning, Belle sat in the dining room with the rest of his familia having breakfast. As they ate, Aisha asked, So, Captain, how did you go? Belle glanced at the Amazonas. Sorry. The woman snorted. Your dates? How did it go? The boy paused slightly, noticing the pointed looks he was getting from Hestia and Artemis. It went well. Aisha grinned. And? Who did you end up choosing? That caught everyone's attention, and Cassandra asked. Choosing? Choosing what? Daphne sighed at her best friend's reaction. His date, what else? Haroheim's face reddened. D-date? Welf grinned, glancing at Lily's annoyed face. Yeah, I'm actually curious. Was it the elf or the waitress? Belle took a deep breath, knowing full well he was going to regret what he was going to say, but would probably end up being worse if he wasn't honest. The white-haired hero answered quietly. Both. An awkward silence fell upon them, before Artemis exploded. Both. Everyone grimaced at the reaction, even Hestia and the goddess of the hearth sighed. Calm down, Artemis. Do you think Belle, your chosen Orion, would go down that path? The goddess of the hunt fell silent for a brief moment. Maybe. Belle massaged his temples. I don't want to know anymore. The blacksmith laughed. But by the gods, both. Aisha grinned. Didn't think you'd have it in you, Captain. Belle sighed. To be clear, this wasn't my idea. Welf laughed even more. And you didn't even try. Lily grumbled as she jabbed at the redhead. Glad to know someone is finding this fun. Daphne hummed. I'm actually more surprised that Ryuu agreed. Makoto nodded. Ryuu Dano. Yes, I wouldn't have thought. Cassandra and Haroheim both blushed, not daring to look at Belle. The white-haired human sighed. Can we please not talk about this in the morning? I'm still coming to terms with it. Hestia snorted. And miss out on a chance to grill and tease you about it? Lily looked at the goddess in surprise. You're okay with it? The goddess of the hearth shrugged. Not much I can do about it. But considering it's Belcoin, there are plenty of heroes who've had multiple partners. It was always a possibility. Hestia looked at the boy. But make sure you treat them both right. Then you should be all right. Belle nodded. That is the plan. The goddess nodded in satisfaction. Then we're fine. Line break. Meanwhile, in the hostess, Syr and Ryu were in the elf's room, the goddess in high spirits as she combed Ryu's hair. The elf looked into the mirror. You seem happy, Syr. The silver-haired girl beamed. Of course I am. I finally got Belle's answer, and you're in on it too. Being together with my two favorite people. How can I not be happy? Ryu smiled softly. I suppose you're right. Syr leaned down. Speaking of, it doesn't just have to be a sharing Belle, you know? The elf blinked in confusion. Huh. The goddess smiled mischievously before she stood up straight. It might be a bit early for you. Don't worry about it. Ryu pursed her lips. Syr, if you mean you want more girls to be in a relationship with Belle. The goddess blinked a few times before she laughed. Oh, gods no. Definitely not. Syr breathed. You saw how Belle reacted when we told him we could share him. I doubt he'd entertain the thought of more girls. She shook her head. No, I meant us. Ryu blinked a few times. Us. Her eyes widened in realization, her face taking a deep shade of red at the implications. The goddess giggled. Ryu, you naughty, naughty elf. Ryu spluttered. Are you what? Syr laughed. Don't worry about it. It was just an idea. The elf fell silent, her face still red. You're teasing me again. The girl smiled. Well, if you're keen. But we don't have to if you're not sure. Ryu sighed, but decided against speaking. Syr continued, combing her hair. You know, you should grow your hair out more. I think Belle would love it. The elf looked at her best friend. Really? The goddess nodded. I actually liked it when your hair was long. Not as much as I like your hair short, though. Ryu hummed. Maybe I'll grow out again, probably just to my shoulders, though. The elf asked. Speaking of, I wanted to ask you. How is this sharing thing going to work? The goddess smiled. Simple. We're both equals, right? We can spend time with Belle together, or we can spend time with him alone. The elf blinked. That's simple. Syr nodded. That's simple. As long as we talk to each other, I think we'll be fine. Ryu nodded in understanding. I see. That makes sense. Syr nodded in satisfaction. Good. Now, let's get changed. Mama Mia will get angry if we don't show up soon. The elf nodded in agreement. Definitely. Line break. Meanwhile, in the Folkvanger, Horn stood in the meeting room of the executives. Alan scowled. So, how did it go? Freya-sama didn't come back yesterday. Otter looked at the attendant. I'll leave this to you. The nameless held back the urge to glare at the Boaz. Belle Cranel is now officially her Otter. Freya-sama was just spending the night with the gale wind. Everyone fell silent before the Gulliver brothers exclaimed in perfect unison. Wait, are you serious? Alan scowled, but said nothing, while Hogni just stared at the table blankly. Hayden sighed. So he chose her in the end. Horn shook her head. No, he's also involved with the gale wind. Freya-sama has decided to share her Otter with her. That surprised everyone at the table except for Otter. The Boaz knew it was always a possibility. Alan scowled. That bastard. Hogni spoke up quietly, so it's official now. Hayden nodded. That's right. Freya-sama has her Otter now. Otter felt the need to speak up. Nothing has changed. We will continue to be her familia. The white elf glared at him. How can you speak as if nothing has changed? The Boaz stared at Hayden calmly. Freya-sama is no longer bound by the shackles of a goddess. Those words hit Hayden like a punch in the gut. What? Otter stared the elf in the eyes. She has found balance as both goddess and girl. Horn can confirm my words. Everyone else looked at the attendant, and Horn sighed. It is true. Freya-sama has embraced her side as seer, just as much as she is a goddess. The Boaz nodded, and the ones who helped her reach that point were Belle Cranel and the Gale Wind. Not you, Hayden. The white elf leaned back into his seat. Do you think the rest of the familia will simply accept that and move on? Alan snorted. They will. They have no other choice. Hayden closed his eyes. They won't, not willingly. Alfred asked. Then what do you propose? The white elf breathed before an idea surfaced his mind. We have him take part in the baptism. That caught everyone's attention, and Hogni spoke up, but that would mean everyone would go straight for him. Hayden nodded. That is the idea. If he can defeat everyone, then no one can whine about it. Just like how it was with Otter. Alan snorted. What a joke. You just want to have everyone try to kick his ass. The white elf glared at him. Do not pretend to know how I feel. This will serve as his final test. Otter sighed. Belle Cranel has proved time over time. He alone is worthy. He stared at Hayden. But you make a good point. No one will be satisfied if they don't have proof. The Boaz stood up. We will have him participate in a baptism, and when he wins, no one will get in their way. Grur scoffed. You seem confident he can win against all of us. Otter snorted. Except myself. No one here has won against him. He will win. Hayden narrowed his eyes. Even against you? The Boaz narrowed his eyes in return. You want to put the two of us against each other. The elf didn't back down. You are the captain of the familia. Otter snorted again. Very well. I will take your bait this time and take part in the baptism. But you will take responsibility when Freya-sama finds out. Hayden glared at the Boaz. Fine. The Boaz looked at Horn. That's how it is. Tell Bell Cranel that he is to join in on our baptism. The attendant stared at the 8 men present before she nodded. I understand, but know that she will be furious. Otter nodded. He will cross that bridge when it comes. Horn nodded, and she turned to leave the Folkvanger. Line break. Later that afternoon, Bell was back in the hostess, the restaurant having a small break after the lunch rush. The moment he walked in, Mia saw him from the counter, and she smirked when she saw him. Well, look who finally decided to show up. Bell greeted Mamma Mia. The dwarf tossed him a small pouch, and the boy blinked in confusion when he caught it. What's this? Mia breathed. Thanks for not making a mess of the place, not making it hard for any of us to sleep, and keeping both of those idiots happy. The boy opened the pouch to see a few mooncakes in there, and he blinked in surprise. Wait, are these Dash? The dwarf nodded. They're not from your recipe. I tried adding a bit of a twist of my own, so I was hoping you'd also try them out and let me know your thoughts. Bell nodded. Sure, I'll try them later. Load Gilgamesh. He briefly took on Gilgamesh's powers and put the pouch of mooncakes into his treasury before he asked, so, where's everyone else? Mia turned to wipe the countertop. On break. Well, no doubt the two of them already know you're here. Of course we do. As if on cue, Syr's voice reached their ears, and the two turned to see Syr and Ryuu walk out of the back. The goddess beamed, Bell. Ryuu greeted with a more quiet tone, Bell. The boy smiled back. Ryuu sans Syr. Syr asked, have you had lunch yet? Bell nodded. Technically brunch, but yes. The goddess pouted. Ah, I was hoping we could eat together. Ryuu smiled softly. Syr only had a small snack for lunch. The boy smiled with exasperation. We didn't have to do that. We could have just spent some time together. Syr snorted. But I wanted to. Now you owe me lunch. Bell chuckled. All right. Mamma Mia. Mind if I use the kitchen? I promise I'll clean up. The dwarf sighed. All right. Make sure you top up the ingredients you use too, please. The boy waved it off as he walked into the kitchen. Sure. As the boy disappeared into the kitchen, Mia gave Syr a look as she pulled the pair aside. I know I don't have to say this, but try to not push your luck. It's good enough that he's giving you a chance. Don't fuck it up. The goddess sighed. I know. You don't have to remind me. The dwarf frowned. No. You need to hear this. Ryuu is fine, and everyone is okay with you because it's you. But with him, he's trying hard not to show it, but you're still on thin ice. Syr breathed out and nodded. I'll keep that in mind. Ryuu looked at the goddess worriedly. Syr. The girl put on a smile. Don't worry. I promised I'd make it right. Mia snorted at her response, but decided against saying anything else. Not long after, Bell walked out of the kitchen. All right, I'm done. He blinked when he saw Mia, Syr, and Ryuu at the other end of the bar. What are the three of you doing there? The elf answered. Nothing. Mamma Mia just had something to tell us. Bell raised an eyebrow. Oh. The dwarf snorted. Nothing you need to worry about, Brad. Now what did you make? The boy held 2 plates, just some simple meatballs and potatoes, and fish too. Mia gave a quick glance. I see. Well, I'll leave you to it then. Ryuu nodded to the dwarf in appreciation. Thank you, Mamma Mia. We'll be in the courtyard then. The owner of the pub just waved them off as the 3 walked out the back. After a short walk, the 3 sat in the courtyard, the 2 waitresses eating their lunch, Syr sitting between Bell and Ryuu. The goddess smiled as she ate her lunch. So, Bell, when are you planning your next expedition? Bell hummed. Good question. I haven't had a chance to actually think about it. Aurin has told me to let the dungeon calm down a bit before I went down again. Syr raised an eyebrow. Calm down. The boy nodded. I used the Imminum note Saruji down there. The dungeon wasn't quite happy about it. Ryuu nodded slowly. I see. The elf's mind immediately went to when they faced the juggernauts, particularly the moment Bell demolished the monsters. The goddess hummed. I suppose not. Well, at least that'll let us spend some time together. The other 2 nodded in agreement, before the 3 heard some footsteps from behind them. Syr-sama. Syr turned back to glance at her attendant. Horn, what are you doing here? Horn held back a grimace, something that didn't escape the goddess. I'm here for Bell. Ryuu asked for Bell. The boy asked curiously, what can I do for you? The attendant hesitated for a brief moment before she answered, I have been tasked to request your participation in our daily baptism. Bell blinked in confusion. Baptism? Syr snapped, no, absolutely not. Ryuu was a bit confused. What's wrong, Syr? The boy quickly understood what she was referring to. The goddess frowned. The baptism, as they refer to, is a form of training my children came up with to get stronger. They fight amongst themselves almost to the death after breakfast until sundown. The elf blinked. So, those weren't just rumors? Syr shook her head. No, they're true. She narrowed her eyes at Horn, who was inwardly worried about earning the ire of her goddess. Who told you to get Bell to join? The attendant answered. Dean did. He said it would help Bell with the other members of Familia. If he came up on top, they wouldn't whine or do anything to him. Syr took a deep breath. I will have words with him about this. Bell considered the idea for a moment. Horn-san, When you say baptism, does everyone in the Freya familia take part in it? Horn nodded. For the most part, yes. Everyone except for the Andrimner is involved. The executives may choose to join or not, though. The attendant added, from my understanding, Otter plans to join if you choose to join. Ryuu gaped. The king? You're saying he wants to fight Bell? Syr's expression darkened. Him too. Bell nodded. All right, when is it? The two girls, and Horn to a lesser extent, looked at him as if he were crazy. Syr frowned. You won't be just facing Otter and Hayden, it'll be everyone in my familia. Bell smiled. Don't worry too much. I fought most of your executives before, and I fought the Loki familia in the dungeon with their numbers at 100. This won't be too different, and I've been meaning to ask Otter-san for a spar for a while now. The white-haired human looked at Horn. Tell them I'm in, and make sure Hayden knows I'm coming for him. Horn nodded, but she looked at Syr for approval, and the goddess sighed. Can't you just get Otter to spar with you one-on-one? I really don't like this. The boy shook his head. Hayden actually has a point somewhat. A lot of people in your familia won't accept that I'm your Otter, so the easiest way to solve this is through brute force. They won't get it unless I beat it into them. Ryuu hummed. That is true. I can see the logic in that. Syr sighed. I still don't like it. We finally got somewhere. I don't want to see you get hurt because of my familia. The goddess looked at her attendant. All right, fine. The baptism tomorrow, yes? Horn nodded. I'll let them know. With that said, the woman left the premises, leaving the three to continue their break. Syr grumbled. There goes my mood for the day. Ryuu spoke. You know, you don't seem all that worried for the lower-level members of your familia. The goddess snorted. Look, I love all of my children. I love them all the same, but I trust Hythe and her team. No one will die, but someone will get hurt, and I'd rather Bell not be the one that gets hurt. Bell snorted. Relax, I'll be fine. Worst case scenario, I can bust out the Eminum no Tsurugi again. Or hell, I might even bring EA out. Syr sighed. Please don't. Especially not EA. The goddess shook her head. I think I'll spend the night here again. Ryuu smiled dryly. All right. Syr leaned on Bell. You can stay the night too, Bell. The boy smiled slightly. I guess I could. The elf's face reddened. W8. The goddess smiled impishly. Don't worry, Ryuu. We won't do anything, I promise. I want you to go first anyways. Ryuu spluttered. You what? Bell chuckled, his face flushing a bit. I don't think you should tease her that much. Syr snorted. I meant staying over as in just sleeping in the same bed and spending time together. It's not my fault our elf here has naughty thoughts of her own. The elf's face was a perfect imitation of a tomato by now, and the young man laughed softly. True. Ryuu spluttered. Jay, just shut up and eat. The other two just laughed as they continued eating. Line break. The next morning, Bell, Ryuu, and Freya were in the Folkvanger. The white-haired hero had let Hestia and Artemis know that he was spending the night over at the hostess and that he would be back later the next day. Both goddesses were skeptical, but had let it go. Now, the trio walked through the halls of the mansion. Many of the Freya familia members looked at them as they walked through the compound, but none of them dared approach their goddess. The reason was simple. Whilst Freya's face betrayed none of her emotions, they all knew her well enough by now to know that she was not happy at all. As the trio walked away, Van, a half-prom with blue hair, watched from the sides. Freya-sama is not happy at all, is she? A brown-haired man, Rask, answered from his side. Of course not. Bell Cranel is participating in the baptism today, isn't he? Remilia, a female mage, spoke up from beside him. I heard he trained against the Loki familia and Otter for his war game against the Apollo familia. I'm actually curious how strong he actually is. Van frowned. Considering he took down Alan and the others very strong. I want to knock him down a few pegs myself, but I doubt any of us can touch him. Back with Bell, Freya, and Ryuu, the three reached a throne room, and Bell quickly noticed every executive member of the Freya familia standing before the throne. Freya spoke. Good. All of you are here. The 8 men and 1 attendant lowered their heads as Freya stopped before them, not approaching the throne at all. Otter spoke up. Freya-sama, welcome back. The goddess breathed. Hayden. The white elf lowered his head more, almost tensing at her tone. Yes. Freya continued. Look at me. Hayden stepped out of his position and faced the three, and the goddess walked towards him. Before anyone could react, a loud smack reached everyone's ears as a red palm-shaped mark formed on Hayden's cheek. The goddess spoke calmly. Tell me why I shouldn't expel you from my familia right now. Hayden lowered his head, not meeting her eyes. Everything I do is for you, Freya-sama. Freya narrowed her eyes at him. You arranged Bell to take part in the baptism. Do you think I'm an idiot, Hayden? The white elf responded calmly. I would never dare. The goddess took a deep breath. Be grateful that Bell is willing to play along. If not, you wouldn't be standing here. Freya looked at Otter. And you, why did you not stop him? The Boaz explained. Because having him join the baptism would fortify his status amongst the other members. They would not trouble him, nor you or the gale wind. The goddess snorted, and that is why I am allowing Hayden to stay. At the end of the day, that point is true. Freya turned, I'll be watching the baptism, and don't even think of making any more schemes. With that said, the goddess led her 2 favorite people away, leaving the 9 members of the Freya familia in the room. As the 3 walked, Ryuu asked, "Are you okay, Syr?" Freya smiled, happy that the elf had chosen to address her as Syr even when she was in her goddess form. "Yes, I'm fine. I'm still not happy with what Hayden did, but I can't say I wasn't expecting something like this when I found my otter." Belle hummed, "We'll just have to work with it." The goddess nodded before she asked, "So what do you think of the folkvanger?" The elf answered, "It feels more like a castle than a home." Belle nodded, glancing around at the Freya familia members around them. "And I'm surprised we don't see many of the familia members outside that often. There's so many of them at the uniform." Freya nodded. "That'll be because they spend a lot of their time training. They rarely have time to venture out unless we put a hold to their training." The trio continued walking through the familia home before they noticed the familia members all starting to head in a certain direction. Freya breathed out, "So it's time." Ryuu blinked, "It's time for Belle nodded, "The baptism, as they call it." The goddess nodded, "Come. Let's head for the courtyard." The 3 headed for the field in the courtyard, and as they walked, Freya spoke, "Belle, I think I should let you know this. The baptism starts when everyone involved is gathered in the field." Belle hummed, "I see." The goddess sighed, "No doubt you'll be a prime target, so I'll head over to the field with you first." The boy shook his head, "No, I think it'll be better if you and Ryuu stay away from the battlefield." Ryuu blinked in surprise, "But why?" Belle kept his eyes up front, "Because if we're doing this, we're doing it properly. They probably already know that she's watching, but if Freya shows up, everyone will be worried they'll anger her." The goddess nodded, "That was the point." The boy sighed, "Freya, I'm not weak." Freya didn't say anything, and Belle continued, "Anyways, I don't plan to hold back. So just make sure your healers are ready for anything. I'll be pulling out my noble phantasms a lot." The goddess nodded, "I understand." She looked at Ryuu. "Ryuu, come with me. We'll head for the balcony." The elf looked at both Belle and Freya. "Actually, maybe I should join as well, to help Belle." Belle shook his head. "No, I'll be fine. I'd rather you stay with Freya." Ryuu frowned, but Freya nodded in agreement. "To be honest, I agree with him." The elf wanted to protest, but reluctantly nodded, "All right." With that said, Freya and Ryuu headed for the balcony overseeing the field, whilst Belle followed after the majority of the Freya familia members. Soon, Belle found himself before the majority of the Freya familia members, all sporting the similar, if not the same uniforms. He spotted Otter at a distance with the other executive members, and quickly realized everyone had their eyes on him. The captain of the Freya familia regarded the captain of the Hestia familia. "I suppose you don't need any explanations with how this will work." Belle nodded, "It's simple, right? We just fight each other to the death." Otter nodded, "That's right. It begins the moment every participant arrives. And right now, you are the last." The boy nodded, "I see. Load Gilgamesh." As soon as he chanted, everyone around him exploded into action, charging for him. But before any of the lower-level members could get close, thousands of golden portals appeared above them. Then hell let loose. It ended as soon as it happened, and Belle stared ahead of him, where all of the executive members stood. Otter, Hogni, and Alan were all relatively unscathed, but Hayden and the Gulliver brothers were not so lucky. The Boaz snorted, his eyes scanning the field briefly. "Not bad. You took them all out in less than a minute." Alfred scowled. "Seems like you found your match, Hayden." The white elf scowled, "Shut your trap." Alan glowered at the boy and dashed forward without a word. Belle snorted and blocked the cat person's thrust with a golden sword. "You never learn, do you?" He unleashed a rain of blades at Alan, forcing him to back away, and Belle took the chance to focus. Time stopped almost instantly. Belle called out, "You're there, aren't you?" "Yeah, I hear you. Not gonna lie, I'm a bit disappointed." The boy asked why. "'Cause you're not going up against something you can't win, as you are now. Really, this one is boring." Belle snorted. "Well, sorry for not meeting your expectations." The voice sighed. "Well, like that Japanese prince said, beggars can't be choosers. Besides, I'd rather you use my noble phantasm properly than through that faker. And no better way to take down a cat than a hound, yeah?" The white-haired hero grinned. "Exactly." The voice hummed. "Then we're good. From today onwards, I am thou. And thou art I." Time resumed, as Belle started chanting, weaving between Alan's attacks as he did. Hayden cursed, "Fight forevermore, O immortal soldiers of lightning." Salis Hilder. Arrows of lightning appeared above them, but Belle was quick to take them down with the gate of Babylon despite still chanting. Otter watched as Belle simply dodged Alan's attacks, not really moving much from his spot, until the boy finished his chant, "Load, see you Chulin." Belle released his hold on Gilgamesh's powers, instead letting the existence of the Hound of Ulster fill his body. Balg appeared in his hands, and to Alan's surprise, the cat person was quickly knocked back by the red spear. Bell twirled the red spear in his hands. Now, let me show you how you should really use a spear. With that said, the white-haired hero dashed forward, and Alan growled as he did the same. The two spears clashed, and the pair blurred into a dance. But Alan quickly found himself pushed back. Balg danced in Bell's hands seamlessly, flowing around the boy as if it had a mind of its own, parrying any attempt from Alan before weaving to attack. As Bell pushed Alan's spear away again once more, the boy kicked the cat person away, set. Bell flipped the spear in his hand into reverse grip as he prepared to throw it. Bulg. The red spear pierced through the air, striking Alan in the shoulder before the cat person could react, before pushing him straight into the wall at the far end of the field. Bell breathed out. That's one down. For you. Bell narrowed his eyes as he moved just in time to dodge a swing from Valen's hammer, and he was forced to keep moving as the other three brothers followed up with more attacks. The boy grunted in annoyance as the four brothers began an almost never-ending combo, and Hayden's voice reached his ears. Strike forevermore, O immortal general of lightning. Bell narrowed his eyes. Overload, Gilgamesh. Valiant Hilder, Dainsleif. Golden portals appeared, as a dozen weapons appeared to block the large blast of lightning. At the same time, Hogni dashed forward, victim abyss in his hands, as he swung it at Bell. But before the blade could touch him, the dark elf was blown away by a few weapons from the gate of Babylon. Bell breathed out. So now the six of you come at me together. Finally, he glanced at the Gulliver brothers. First, the four of you. The four dwarves tried to charge at the boy again, but they couldn't make it past 2 steps before hundreds of weapons rained down on them, piercing through their bodies. Hayden cursed. Fight forevermore, dash. You're too slow. The white elf's eyes widened as 2 spears pierced through his shoulders, sending him to the ground. Bell hummed as he turned to Hogni. Now your turn. The dark elf scowled. Your arrogance will be your undoing. Hogni dashed forward, the cursed blade swinging at Bell, only for a pair of spears to block it, extended from the gate of Babylon. Bell snorted. Arrogance? I'd say the same for you. Besides, I've already defeated all of you before. I'm only doing this to make a point. He focused, reaching for his connection with the throne of heroes. And once again, time stopped, pulling out 2 new heroic spirits to make a point. Quite the air we have here, huh? Bell nodded. And yet you still answer my call. The voice snorted. With what you pulled with Asclepius before, you can pretty much summon anyone you want forcefully. The boy blinked in surprise. Really? The voice hummed. But don't worry. Not many of us disagree with what you did to save your friend. Or, I suppose girlfriend is more accurate. Bell nodded. I didn't really have a choice. The voice chuckled. We always have a choice. Just like how I'm choosing to respond to your call. But still, against someone bearing the name Dainsleif, well, we can't not answer. The boy blinked. We? The voice hummed. That's right. You'll understand when you inherit my memories. But as of now, I'm more directly related to this situation you're facing, as you already know. Bell hummed. Guess I'll find out later then. The voice responded. Good, now let us begin. From this day forward, I am thou. And thou art I. Time resumed, as Bell pulled a sword from the gate of Babylon and clashed blades with the dark elf whilst chanting. Hogni growled as he tried to stab at Bell's face, only for the boy to easily move away. The exchange repeated a few times, until Bell finished his chant. Load, Sigurd. The white-haired hero replaced the powers of Siyu Chulin with that of the Volsunga king. Hogni's eyes widened as he felt the pressure from the boy, and he scowled. What are you? The dark elf could feel something stirring in him, straight from the soul, and he didn't like it one bit. Graham appeared in Bell's hands. A demonic sword for a demonic sword, no? Hogni scowled and dashed forward, victim abyss slicing through the air for Bell's sides. Yet, Graham was there to meet the cursed sword, as the two traded swings constantly. But the more they fought, the more Hogni found himself being pushed back once more, being blown away from a single clash against Graham. Bell brandished the demonic sword of the sun. Now let's end this. He held Graham in both hands. Oh, demonic sword of the sun, give rise to destruction with thy blade. The blue blade of the reforged blade glowed brightly, and Hogni growled as he tightened his grip on his victim abyss. Then Bell dashed forward, set, bulwark Graham. Hogni roared as he dashed forward in kind, swinging his victim abyss to meet the noble phantasm. The two demonic blades clashed, but Hogni stood zero chance, being blown away the instant his sword met the noble phantasm. Bell breathed out as he relaxed, before turning to the final figure standing in the field. You waited. Otter hummed. You've grown stronger, Bell Cranel. You have managed to single-handedly defeat every other member of this familia. You are worthy of her. The boy narrowed his eyes. And are you saying you will just step aside for me? The Boaz snorted, hardly. The last time we faced each other was when you were training to fight the Apollo Familia. Bell snorted, so you want to see how far I've come? Otter nodded, correct. Bell noted the position of the sun before he nodded, very well. Then I'll come at you with everything I have. Otter nodded, drawing his supreme black sword, show me then. Bell chanted, overload. The powers of Heracles, Orion, Sutta Kentoki, Lancelot, Galahad and Gawain filled his body, and the boy replaced Graham with the Excalibur Gallatin. Otter-san, I'll give you one chance. The Boaz looked intrigued. A chance? Bell raised his sword at the sun. Put up all of your abilities, your magic, your skills. Everything. Otter felt his lips curving upwards. Oh, and you think you are ready to face that? The boy didn't respond directly, instead throwing his sword into the air. This sword is a reflection of the sun, a flare that burns away all impurities. Otter hummed, very well. He started to chant, "O mercy of the silver moon, plains of gold. This body is destined to be the wild boar of war. Wildly I shall charge, delivering her divine will." How this Vini, as the Gallatin exploded into a miniature sun. Otter's body took on a golden hue, at the same time also bulking up as he activated his beastification. A beam of flames shot down from the sphere of flames, as Bell clasped both hands around the beam before it shrunk back into the sword of revolving victory. Soon, both captains of their respective familias each held their swords, the blades glowing brightly with power. Bell dashed forward, set. Excalibur. Otter responded in kind, roaring as he exploded into action. Gallatin. Both swords met each other, creating a giant explosion that engulfed most of the field. Bell breathed out, not looking any worse for wear, the Gallatin still glowing as he stood cautiously. The dust cleared up, revealing Otter heavily burnt, his sword broken in half. The Boaz coughed slightly as he fell to a knee. Bell relaxed. That's that. Unless you want to keep going. Otter snorted. No, I lost. That was an impressive attack. The boy nodded. Just now, that was an afterglow. The Boaz nodded. Correct. You supplement your weapon with your magic and force it all out through the weapon. Bell hummed, considering if he could do the same instead of firing his noble phantasms normally. The other Freya Familia members, or at least the ones who were recovered by Hythe and her team and awake, all watched in shock and awe at the scene. Hythe approached the pair. Are you done? Bell and Otter looked at her, and the Boaz nodded. Yes. We lost. The healer sighed. Right, and I'm just glad everything is over. She looked at Bell. You've established yourself to be even above Otter. I'm sure no one will dare to bother you in your relationship with Freya-sama. The boy nodded. That'll be good. Hythe breathed out. All right, now get your asses in line so we can heal you. Bell blinked in surprise, but Otter simply nodded in resignation as he followed the others to line up. Line break. Meanwhile, Ryuu, Freya, and Horn were on the balcony, having witnessed the entire match. Overall, it had taken less than 30 minutes before Bell wiped out the entire Einherjar division of the Freya Familia. Ryuu was surprised. To think Bell had become so strong. Freya nodded in pleasant surprise. Even if it was only a single strike, Bell has surpassed Otter. Horn hummed. Otter's growth has been pretty slow recently, but Bell is still getting stronger by the day. It won't be long until Bell fully surpasses him. The elf nodded in agreement, and the goddess smiled. Come, let's go see how they're doing. Ryuu nodded as she followed the pair down. But before they left the balcony, the elf gave the field one last glance. She pursed her lips, the events with the juggernauts replaying in her mind. Ryuu needed to get stronger, if only for both Syr and Bell, and there was only one way she could do it. Fake it till you make it. Chapter 52. The next day, Hestia's voice exploded throughout the Hearth Mansion. You what? Bell grimaced as he leaned back, holding back the urge to cover his ears. The boy took a deep breath. I fought the majority of the Freya Familia. Hestia glared at him, whilst Artemis just sighed and shook her head in exasperation. The goddess of the hearth scowled. And Freya, just let it happen. Bell looked aside. Well, she wasn't really happy about it. Hestia took in a deep breath. I would be pissed if she was fine with it. Either way, we need to have a chat with her about this. Artemis spoke up. Hestia, maybe calm down a bit before you storm up to her? Bell won, didn't he? The goddess of the hearth folded her arms. I know, but I'm still not happy. Bell smiled sheepishly. Well, Hestia snorted. So, I'm assuming you want to update your status. The boy nodded. Yeah, well, it was actually a bit easy dealing with the majority of them. And I inherited Sigurd and Siyu Chulin too, so that caught their attention, and Hestia nodded slowly. I see. All right, show me your back. Bell turned and took off his shirt, and the goddess pricked her finger, dropping a drop of blood onto his back as she updated his status. Soon, Hestia produced a sheet and passed it on to Bell, who nodded as he gave a quick read. Huh. Maxed out already? The goddess of the hearth pursed her lips. Belkin, this growth of yours, it's not normal. Belle blinked, huh, why? Artemis spoke up. Belle, adventurers train relentlessly for years to gain Excelia. The higher your level, the harder it is to grow stronger. Hestia nodded in agreement. Even taking your skills into consideration, it's not normal. Belle nodded slowly. I see. But that's a good thing, isn't it? The goddess of the hearth shook her head. I think I told you this before, but mortals don't usually have the capacity to house a lot of power. That's why we use Falnas to strengthen your vessels, to house more divinity. Artemis added, when you have too much power, your body strains, just like what happened with you when you defeated Antares. Have you experienced anything similar recently? Belle paused before sighing. Yes. Hestia sighed. I think you should hold off inheriting more heroic spirits, or even use more than 3 at a time. The boy frowned, but dash. Artemis cut him off. Belle, you need to be careful. We're worried for you. What if your body gives in? Belle sighed. Fine. I'll try to be more careful. Hestia stared at him. Please. The boy nodded before he put his shirt back on. All right, I'll be going then. I promised Ryuu and Syr I'd help them with groceries. Artemis nodded. All right, be careful then. Hestia didn't comment as Belle headed for the door. I'll be back later. With that said, the captain left the room. Line break. A short while later, Belle was with Ryuu and Syr on the streets, each of them holding 2 bags of groceries. As they walked, Ryuu spoke, Hey Belle, Syr. Both looked at her, and Syr smiled. Yes? The elf took a deep breath. I think it's time I went to see Astria-sama again. Belle blinked in surprise. Astria? Your old goddess. Ryuu nodded, yes. She looked at him. Belle, you were able to fight against the Freya Familia on equal grounds, on your own, and you won. I can't let myself remain as I am. Belle raised an eyebrow. But why? You're not planning to go back into the dungeon, are you? Ryuu turned away. I am considering it, the elf added, and I was also thinking of converting, maybe to your Familia, Belle. Belle looked surprised. Mine? Ryuu nodded. It's been on my mind for a while now, and seeing you fight Otter and the others, that helped me make up my mind. Syr smiled in understanding. You don't want to stand by and do nothing, right? The elf nodded. I know I am nowhere near your level, Belle. Maybe never. But if it helps me get just a tad bit closer. Belle hummed. I see. I guess that makes sense. Syr smiled. And hey, if Hestia doesn't want you, I can take you in any time. That'll bring us closer, no? Ryuu blinked in surprise. You do that? The goddess looked offended. Why wouldn't I? You're literally one of the most important people I have. The elf nodded. I see. I'll have to think about it. Belle spoke. For now, we should speak to Mamma Mia about this. Hopefully she'll be fine with all 3 of us going. Syr snorted. Oh, she'll be fine. Worst case scenario, I'll have someone stand in for my Familia. Ryuu nodded. That. And I still need to figure out where to look for her. We've been sending letters to each other, but it's been a while since we last traded letters. Belle asked, maybe we can start with the place you sent your letter last? The elf nodded. I'll have to double check with Hermes. Syr beamed as she clapped her hands together. We should take the chance to go on a holiday, too, once we're done with Astria. The 2 mortals looked at her, and Belle asked, a holiday? Syr nodded with a smile. That's right, just the 3 of us. We could go anywhere and do whatever we want. Ryuu looked unsure, but that would mean we'd be leaving the hostess for a while, and Belle would be away from his Familia dash. Syr snorted. Ryuu, when you ask Mamma Mia, and his goddess in Belle's case, they'd be expecting us to be away for at least a week to travel to where Astria is. She smiled mischievously. With Belle's Vimana, we can shorten the time we need to travel from days to minutes. We could just have our holiday then. Syr looked at Ryuu. That's how we visited Belle's hometown on our date. Belle sighed. That is an option, I guess. The boy asked, how will we deal with the guild, though? I doubt the guild will let the 2 of us leave like this. The goddess' smile widened. I'll figure something out, don't worry. Syr placed both arms on her hips. Now let's get to work. 2 days later, Belle, Syr, and Ryuu were on a wagon, the goddess having insisted she buy one for the sake of their trip. Belle sat on the driver's seat, while Syr and Ryuu sat behind him inside the wagon. The boy sighed. I thought we were going to use the Vimana or my chariot. Syr smiled widely. Well, I managed to convince Aurenas to approve our trip as a quest from both Ryuu and the Freya Familia, so I figured this would work out better. Said elf chuckled in exasperation. I'm not complaining. This will be a good change of pace. And let me know if you want a break. I can swap in for you. Belle sighed again. No need. I'll be fine. If not, I'll just have Xanthos and Balius pull the wagon while I take a break. Ryuu shook her head in disbelief. That's hardly a break. Syr giggled. Well, if he says he's fine, he'll be fine. If anything, that'll give us a chance to take care of him, no? The elf's face immediately reddened. Take care of him. The goddess giggled mischievously, and Belle wisely chose to not comment as he quietly held the reins. Later that night, the trio reached a small village east of Orio after using Xanthos and Belias to shorten the distance a bit more. They were now in a small restaurant, having parked the wagon and the normal horse outside. Ryu asked as they waited for their food, "Do we really need to stay the night?" Belle nodded. "It'll be better if we all got some rest, proper rest. Based on the map, the next closest town or city would be accurate. Is Altina." Syr snorted. "Yeah, I'd rather we avoid that place for now. Besides, we're heading for Solingen. Altina is not along the way." The elf nodded in acceptance, and the goddess asked, "How are you feeling?" Ryu looked at her best friend, and she looked down. "Honestly, I am terrified." The other two waited as the elf continued. "I left Astria-sama all those years ago. I know I've sent letters, but the entire reason I'm going to see her is to have her update my status." Belle hummed. "You're worried she might take it the wrong way." Ryu didn't respond, and Syr smiled. "I think you're taking it the wrong way. The Astria, I know, would never be bothered by something like this. You're coming to terms with what happened all those years ago. Say what you want, but you're finally seeing her in person. She'll be happy to see you." The elf sighed. "I suppose." The young man spoke up. "I haven't personally met her, but from the memories I could glean from Al's Lumina, I don't think you have anything to worry about." Ryu nodded slowly. "I hope so." But before they could continue, a crash caught their attention, and the three turned to see a few drunk men stumbling into the building. One of them laughed drunkenly. "Bring me more beer." Another laughed similarly. "And where's the women?" Ryu frowned at that, and Syr sighed. "What the hell?" Belle gave them a brief glance, noting that there were 5 of them, a mix of dwarves and Chianthropes, all drunk. They started harassing the waiters and waitresses, before eventually starting to harass the customers. Soon, they inevitably made their way to Belle's table, and one of the dwarves leered at Ryu and Syr. "Oh, here are some cute ones." He snarled at Belle. "Fuck off, brat. Your little lady friends are mine now, ha ha ha." The dwarf crashed against the table, yet the 3 gave no reaction, and he scowled. "Didn't you hear me?" Belle sighed. "We did, but listen, not so much." The dwarf snarled. "Think you're funny, huh?" He raised his hand to smash the table, but the moment he swung it down, nothing happened. The dwarf looked at his fist in confusion. Huh. He had definitely hit something, but the impact on the table didn't happen. Then, he felt the table rise as Belle raised his arm, having caught the swing with his palm. Belle breathed, load, Asclepius. The powers of the Greek doctor filled his body, and invoking his powers as a son of Apollo, Belle purged the alcohol from the dwarf's body. The sudden sense of soberness threw the man off guard. Huh? The dwarf looked around, but before he could react, Belle's fist lashed out, striking him in the chest and sending him to the ground. Belle stared at him firmly. "I'll give you one chance. Get your friends out of here and stop causing trouble. If I hear a single word about you, I'll be coming for you." The boy chanted, "Load, Gilgamesh." Summoning simple chains, Belle tossed all of the men out of the restaurant before he walked to the exit, "Leave." The single sober dwarf recognized the threat easily, and he managed to rally his friends to leave. Belle breathed as he released his hold on the heroic spirit's powers before going back to his seat. The moment he did, he was met with applause, and one of the waiters approached him. "That was awesome. They've been hassling us every time they get drunk, but because they're a part of a familia from Altina, nobody can do anything to them." Belle smiled softly. "Well, good thing we're here then." The waiter nodded. "Definitely." The boy sat down. "If you don't mind, we'll just finish our food and be on our way." The waiter nodded. "Of course." As the restaurant quickly returned to its previous state, Syr commented, "Nice work. I didn't know you could heal people from alcohol." Belle chuckled. "Asclepius' powers as a son of Apollo lets me heal simple conditions. Overdosage of harmful substances happens to be one of them." Ryu nodded. "I see a better way than having to beat them up physically." The boy laughed softly. "Unlike a certain someone, if I can avoid it, I'd prefer not to twist someone's hands with a mug." The 2 girls looked confused, and Syr asked, "What are you talking about?" Ryu's look of confusion quickly turned into one of realization. "Oh." Her face reddened. "Why, you remember that?" Belle laughed softly. "Yeep." Syr looked confused. "What am I missing here?" The boy grinned. "When I got my first rank up, we had a little celebration at the hostess, didn't we?" The goddess nodded before she understood, and a smile formed on her face. "Yes. Now I remember." Syr put a cold expression on her face. "Leave. None of you are worthy." Ryu spluttered. "I don't sound like that." The goddess giggled. "That's how I remember it." Belle laughed. "Exactly how she did it." The elf palmed her face. "Spare me, please." The 3 finished their dinner before retiring for the night. Line break. The next day, Belle had Xanthos and Balius pull the wagon with a normal horse, covering most of the distance between the small town and Solingen. Now, the 3 stood outside the walls of the smithing city, and Ryu took a deep breath. Belle asked as they came to a stop, "Nervous?" The elf nodded. "Yes." Syr smiled. "You'll be fine. If anything, just blame it on Belle. and it'll be fine. The boy looked at her. Tell the goddess of justice that I'm the reason her child refused to meet her all these years. Sure. You're going to earn me a German suplex. The two looked at him weirdly, and Ryuu snorted, Astria-sama wouldn't do that to you. Syr nodded, I agree. Bell snorted, you have no idea what goddesses of justice are capable of. He prompted the horses to pull the wagon towards the gates of the city. Soon, after passing the gates with a permit they obtained from Hermes, the three parked the wagon near the exit and started walking through the city. The walls surrounding the city were not unlike those of Arario's, but instead of forming a circle, the walls of Solingen formed a half circle, stopping at the mountains. The other thing that Bell noticed was that despite being a smithing city, the place was surrounded by nature. Between the square buildings with smoke rising from the chimneys were patches of nature, and he could even see a waterfall and river at a distance coming from the mountains. Syr asked, so, any idea where Astria would be? Ryuu breathed. Only one way to find out. The three continued walking, until they spotted a blue-haired girl with her hair in a side ponytail. The girl looked troubled, muttering to herself, why the hell can't I get it done? The deadline is coming around soon. And why the hell do I have to dash? The girl quickly noticed the three staring at her, and her face flushed. W, were you three looking at? Ryuu started. I'm Ryuu Lion. I'm looking for Astria-sama. I'm one of her followers. The girl's expression changed almost immediately. You? Her face went from surprise to being downright hostile. You traitor, you betrayed her. What are you doing here? Ryuu visibly flinched. By now, she could already guess that the girl was one of Astria's new familia members, and she couldn't possibly tell her she was here to have Astria update her status. Bell breathed as he watched the exchange. I'm Bell Cranel. We're here to see Lady Astria. If we can know where she is, that would be greatly appreciated. The girl turned her gaze to him, and she froze in recognition, the ghost liner. The blue-haired girl breathed. Follow me. With that said, the girl walked off, and Bell patted Ryuu on the shoulder. Come on. Syr reached out to hold Ryuu's hand, and the three quickly followed after the girl. Soon, the four came to a sizable wooden house, and both Ryuu and Syr quickly noticed the similarities to the Stardust Garden. The girl glared at the three. Wait here. With that said, the girl stormed into the house, the door slamming shut. Soon, the door opened again, and the three were met with a goddess with chestnut-colored hair in her white dress. Ryuu's eyes trembled, her body almost shaking when she saw the goddess. Astria-sama. The goddess gave her a warm smile. Ryuu, it's been a long time. The elf froze, unable to speak a word, and Astria spoke again. Welcome back. Her legs almost turned to jelly as her eyes watered, simply because those two sentences told Ryuu all that she needed to know. Astria had accepted her, forgiven her for every sin Ryuu thought she had committed. The elf knew from the start the goddess had never once blamed her, but Ryuu wanted to blamed, to be yelled at for the deaths of her late familia members, to be screamed at for murdering all those adventurers in Oreo. Yet, the goddess had simply accepted her as if nothing had changed. The goddess of justice smiled. Have you finished your journey? Ryuu froze, a simple question that meant so much to them both, and she glanced back at Bell and Syr, before back at Astria. The elf swallowed, and she nodded. I have. Astria evidently saw that exchange, not missing the divinity in both Syr and Bell, but she was more focused on Ryuu. Have you found her justice? Ryuu breathed. I don't know, I believe so. The goddess smile widened. Good to hear. She extended her arms, and before Ryuu could react, the goddess had embraced the elf. The blue-haired girl behind Astria looked like she was going to explode from jealousy, something that Bell and Syr did miss. But for Ryuu and Astria, nothing else mattered. Soon, Astria broke the hug, and she glanced at the blue-haired girl. Cecil, can you prepare 3 rooms for our guests? I suspect they'll need a place to rest. The now-named Cecil glared at the three. Why do we have to let them stay here? Astria shook her head in exasperation, but the mischievous glint in her eyes told them otherwise. Come now, Cecil. Ryuu's still your senior, and that is no way to treat any guests. The blue-haired girl saw the look in Astria's eyes, and she sighed in resignation. All right. Cecil turned to enter the building, and Astria turned to the other two, a smile on her face. Now, I believe introductions are in order. Bell spoke. Bell Cranel. I'm the captain of the Hestia Familia. Astria raised an eyebrow. Hestia's Familia. So it was true then. She gained a mischievous smile. It's so good to finally meet the young man who's been plaguing the heart of one of my young maidens. Ryuu blushed. W, what are you saying, Astria-sama? Astria ignored her and looked at Syr. Syr chuckled, understanding the look. I see you're still sharp as ever, Astria. The goddess of justice hummed. I can tell you're not a normal girl. A goddess maybe, but I can't tell who you are. The goddess of love smiled, pulling her hood up. I suppose you'd be more familiar with this face. Syr released her hold on Vanasith, revealing the face of Freya. Much to Astria's surprise, Freya. Freya smiled coyly and brought a finger to her lips as she turned back into Syr again. I'm actually not meant to be here, but I wanted to be here for Ryuu and my otter too. Syr pulled her hood down. At any rate, it's been a very long time, Astria. The goddess of justice sighed. Looks like a lot has happened since the last time we traded letters, Ryuu. The elf smiled awkwardly, I suppose. Astria turned to open the door. We have a lot of catching up to do, but for now, come on in. After a short chat, Ryuu had fallen asleep. The boy had moved the elf to her room, leaving Syr and Astria in the living room. The goddess of justice asked, so you, young Belle and Ryuu, I didn't want to say it before, but you didn't charm any of them, did you? Syr snorted, no, I didn't. Ryuu is just too important to me. At first it was a whim, but she became irreplaceable for me. And Belle, well, it was pretty much the same thing. Astria hummed, I see. I don't sense any traces of your charm on them, so I'll trust you for now. The goddess of justice looked at the room where Ryuu and Belle were, but the heir to the throne of heroes, he's the one Zeus told me about. Syr raised an eyebrow. Zeus? You still talk to him? Astria breathed. Not anymore. He came to me for help before, but I was in a tough spot myself, so we parted ways shortly after. He did tell me about a potential heir, though. Syr hummed. I see. Astria nodded. At any rate, I also trade letters with Hermes, mainly to stay up to date on things in Oreo. He seems to think Belle is the last hero. The goddess of love sighed. I hope not, but then I wouldn't be surprised if he was. Belle is the heir to every single hero in panhuman history. He's already managed to defeat all of my executive members. The goddess of justice looked surprised. Already? But didn't he just become an adventurer recently? Syr nodded. He did. If I'm not mistaken, he took on the powers of multiple heroic spirits and defeated Otter using the Excalibur Gallatin. Astria considered that information. Otter is a level 7, isn't he? The goddess of love nodded. That's right. The goddess of justice hummed. I see. The two goddesses didn't say anything more about that matter, and Astria asked, Freya, not long ago, I felt Ryuu. Syr looked down, and she nodded. Yes, she did. But Belle brought her back. Astria hummed. I see. Our link almost broke off, but it came back before it fully did. I guess I have to thank him for that. Syr nodded, and the two goddesses didn't speak any more of the matter, instead reminiscing about other stuff. Line break. After bringing Ryuu into her room and letting her sleep, Belle left the house, deciding to let the two goddesses catch up. As he walked over, he couldn't help but overhear her words. That stupid elf. Why did she have to come back? Why does Astria-sama still love her so much? Why must I make a weapon for her? Why can't I even finish that goddamned weapon? Cecil punched the tree in front of her each time she mumbled, and Belle decided to speak up. Hey, Cecil, was it? The blue-haired blacksmith jumped when she heard him. Huh? She looked at him. Belle? Cranel. Belle asked kindly, is something wrong? Cecil's face reddened. It has nothing to do with you. She turned to leave, and Belle asked, you said something about a weapon. Do you want to talk about it? Cecil froze, and Belle continued. I'm something of a smith myself. Maybe I can help, if only just to listen. The blue-haired blacksmith scowled. I don't need it. With that said, Cecil stormed off, leaving Belle alone as he scratched his head. The next morning, Ryuu, Belle, Syr and Astria were in the dining room, the boy having offered to make breakfast for them. The goddess of justice hummed in satisfaction. I see you must have inherited the qualities of a heroic chef, Belle. Belle chuckled, something like that. Astria nodded. Thanks for making more for the others. I'm sure the girls would appreciate it. Syr giggled. Oh, they will. No one has ever complained about Belle's cooking so far. The goddess of justice smiled. I'm sure. Astria asked, so, cooking aside, is there something you wanted to ask me, Ryuu? The elf blinked. Huh? The brown-haired goddess smiled. It's been a long time since you entrusted your back to me, hasn't it? Ryuu fell silent, and she nodded. It has. If we could. Astria nodded. Come with me to my room after we finish our meal then. The elf nodded in appreciation. Thank you, Astria-sama. The goddess of justice smiled, before Belle asked, speaking of which, that blue-haired girl Cecil, was it? Astria looked at him. Yes, has something caught your attention, Belle-san? The heir to the throne nodded. Is she a blacksmith? She was talking about some sort of weapon. The goddess of justice smiled softly. Ah, I see. Belle nodded. Just curious. Astria smiled knowingly. It is not my place to tell, but if it's bothering you, you're more than welcome to pry a bit more from her. The young man hummed. I see. He nodded. I guess I'll do just that then. Syr looked at him mischievously. I hope you're not planning on adding her into our little group. Both Belle and Ryuu instantly blushed, and the boy spluttered, what are you talking about? Syr laughed. I'm just joking. The young man sighed as he tried to suppress his blush, and Ryuu cleared her throat. We should finish our food, It'll get cold really soon. Astria laughed. We should really stop teasing them, Freya. The goddess of beauty giggled. But you can't deny that it's fun, no? The goddess of justice laughed softly. No. Bell sighed as he shoved a spoonful of food into his mouth. Great, there's 2 of them. So much for a goddess of justice. Astria looked at him with amusement. Now, just what were you expecting from me? The young man sighed. No comment. With that said, they finished their breakfast. Line break. Later that afternoon, as Ryuu and Astria updated the former's fauna, the young man headed out of the house to explore the town. As he walked into town, the sound of hammers striking metal reached his ears. Bell hummed as he walked. Quite busy for a town like this, but I guess I should have expected this. Compared to Orio, Solingen was small, and the young man quickly found that he had walked through a majority of the town. Soon, Bell quickly came across the girl he was looking for, standing by an anvil at a surprisingly corner of the street. The first thing Bell noticed was her tear-streaked face. The young man approached her, noticing a half-finished sword on the anvil. Good afternoon, Cecil. The blue-haired smith jumped when she heard him, and she glared at him. W, what are you doing here? Bell smiled calmly. I was exploring the town, and I happened to see you here, so I thought I'd come say hi. Cecil rubbed her face quickly, and she opened her mouth to retort, only to be interrupted by a loud growl, and her face quickly took on a deep shade of red when both of them realized where it had come from. Bell kept his smile. I'm assuming you haven't had lunch yet. The blacksmith took a deep breath to control herself, and the young man chanted, Load, Gilgamesh. Cecil watched curiously as Bell pulled out a small pouch, and he smiled as he checked the insides. Okay, it's still good. He handed her the pouch, here. The blue-haired girl blinked in confusion, but accepted the pouch anyways. Huh? Bell smiled. They're mooncakes, a recreation of mine. A friend would be the best word, I suppose. Made them after I made some for them. Cecil blinked. Wait, that means they made it for you. The young man nodded. Yeah, but don't worry. She made them so I could judge how well she did. Another opinion would be great too. The blacksmith wanted to refuse, but another growl from her stomach stopped her, and she blushed. Thanks, I guess. Bell glanced around. Let's go somewhere else. This isn't the best place to eat, no? Cecil sighed. I mean, some smiths do eat near where we work, but I guess not. She grabbed her unfinished sword and turned, follow me. Bell smiled as he walked after her. Line break. Soon, the pair found themselves next to the river. Bell sat down, something Cecil mirrored. After a brief moment, the boy asked, So, aren't you going to eat? The blacksmith jumped slightly, and she nodded. Oh, of course. She opened the pouch to see the mooncakes, and she looked at Bell questioningly. Do I just eat them as is? Bell nodded. Yeah. Cecil took one out, and she breathed before taking a bite. The blacksmith blinked a few times as she took the time to process the flavor, and soon, she finished the mooncake. Bell summoned a golden jug of water and 2 cups, filling them up before handing one to Cecil. The young girl accepted the glass. Thank you. Bell smiled as he drank the water from his cup. So, feel better? Cecil nodded. Yes, thank you. The young man studied her expression for a bit. Did something happen? The girl paused, and she nodded. It's nothing you need to worry about. I'll just try to get my stupid father to let me use the spirit forge. Bell raised an eyebrow. Spirit forge? What is that? Cecil looked at him, and she sighed. It's a special forge. Only those recognized by the spirits in the city are qualified to use it. The young man nodded. I see. And you tried to use it, but I'm assuming you didn't meet the requirements. The smith nodded. To be qualified, you need to obtain a tier from spirit. Bell hummed. I see. That got him thinking, would his or ace tiers count? He glanced at Cecil. So this is your problem? You want to use the spirit forge? Cecil scowled. Of course not. She looked down. The forge is not the issue. I just... Bell guessed. You want to forge a blade, but you can't seem to make it happen. The blacksmith didn't answer out of frustration for being seen through, and the young man asked, What kind of sword do you want to forge? Cecil scowled. It's not like I really want to forge the sword. It's a commission from Astria-sama. Bell raised an eyebrow. A commission? From her. The blacksmith looked away. Forget it. I'll figure out a way. I'll just go ask Yuffie to get a tier. The boy hummed. I see. He stood up, to Cecil's confusion. Load. Muramesa. Cecil almost jumped again at the sudden change, but she was even more curious when Bell summoned an anvil and a hammer. Cecil asked, What are you, Dash? She was cut off when she saw Bell summon a slab of mithril from his treasury. Soon, after heating up the anvil and metal, Bell started hammering away, and Cecil could only watch as the shape of a sword started to form. In no time, Bell finished Itachi, full with a grip and guard. Cecil blinked as the young man handed her the sword. Why you're really a smith too? Bell smiled awkwardly. Well, I know a few things. The blue-haired girl studied the sword. I don't even know how to... The young man's smile changed. What's the first thing you think of when you see this sword? Cecil looked down. That you're a really good smith. Belle chuckled. Muramesa's personality, finding her answer amusing. Is that all? Come on. Surely you can do better. The blue-haired girl looked at the sword again. I mean it. There's no way I can make something like this. And you did it on a whim. The white-haired hero sat down. Did I? Do you forge your weapons on a whim? Cecil snapped at him. Of course not, Dash. Belle smiled as he saw the look of realization on her face. Exactly. Not sure if you've heard the rumors, but I inherit the existence of past heroes. My skills of the forge come from that. The blacksmith Senji Muramesa. Cecil kept her eyes on the sword as Belle continued. Muramesa, and by extension myself. When we forge a sword or a weapon, the intent is to make the ultimate sword, no matter where we are. The girl blinked in confusion. The ultimate sword? Belle nodded. That's right. A sword so well done that it can purge hate, cleave through fate, karma, and destiny. Cecil frowned. Is that even possible? The young man smiled. We live in a world where gods live among us. I don't see why not. Belle looked her in the eye. So, Cecil, what goes through your mind when you make your weapons? The girl paused. My mind. The young man nodded. I've told you about mine. What about you? Is it just to finish a job? Cecil glared at him. Of course not. She trailed off, and Belle didn't speak, letting her gather her thoughts. The girl breathed. I don't know. I thought I wanted to make the best sword I could, but ever since I took on this order from Astria-sama. Belle nodded in understanding. You became conflicted. Cecil glared at the ground. Why do I have to forge a sword for someone who abandoned her when she needed her the most? The boy answered calmly. Because you took on the commission. The blue-haired girl growled. I know that. I know that. Belle chuckled. But still, the person using your sword, is it really that important who it is? Cecil glared at him. Of course it is. The young man nodded. To some extent, I agree. The ones wielding our weapons should be sufficiently skilled, and ideally they use it for reasons that align with ours. It wouldn't do us any good if we forged weapons for our enemies, after all. He looked Cecil in the eye, but, all things considered, does the background of the person using those weapons really matter? Cecil didn't respond. She didn't have one. Belle smiled. Well, I say all that, but at the end of the day, we can choose who we want the weapons to go to. That is your right as a blacksmith, as the creator of said weapon. The girl hummed, but Belle continued. But the problem, Cecil, is that you're letting those thoughts stop you from forging the weapon at all. Cecil didn't look at him. I know that. I just can't help it. Astria-sama took me in. The young man hummed. Just now, you said you didn't really want to forge the sword, only because it is a commission from Astria. Cecil nodded, and Belle sighed. That's the problem. You're doing it out of need, responsibility, not want. Your heart is not in it. The girl didn't deny his words, and the young hero could feel Muramesa's annoyance inside. Belle sighed. At this point, if it were anyone else, I'd just tell you to stop, but Syr and Ryuu won't be happy with me. Cecil looked at him curiously. What do you mean? The young man stared at her. Make me a sword? No. Actually, make me a knife. The girl blinked, huh? Belle brought out the Hakujin. You said you didn't really want to make a sword for Ryuu because of who she is. Then what about me? Cecil furrowed her brows. I don't mind. The boy nodded and held out the Hakujin. Then I'm asking you for a weapon. I want to see just how much you can do without bias or any emotions affecting you. Belle added, I happen to be a dual wielder, so I'll need another knife that is similar to this one. Cecil hesitantly took the Hakujin. I see it. She unsheathed the knife, and her eyes widened. W, what is this? Wait, is this made with a unicorn's horn? Belle nodded. It is. If possible, I want another knife similar to the quality of this one. Cecil pursed her lips, still holding on to the knife. The boy asked, so how about it? Can you do it? The girl frowned at him. But surely you have better weapons. Your own work is already better than mine. Belle nodded. But I'm asking you, Cecil. The blue-haired blacksmith breathed, looking down at the knife. She knew what he was trying to do. Cecil tightened her grip on the knife, and she nodded. I'll do it. Belle gave her a small smile. Good. The girl stood up. Leave it with me. The young man nodded. I'll look forward to it. Cecil just gave him another nod before she left the area for her forge.